Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We'll call to order the March 15, 2023 Select Board meeting to order. We have one change to the agenda. On the public hearings 14 and 15, the two for the club car, we're going to move right after 11. So it's most likely that 12 and 13 for the straight Wharf fish market will be a little longer. So we'd like to get the club car, most likely won't be very long. So we're going to move 14 and 15 after 11. And one other, this isn't a change of the agenda, but anybody here who's going to be watching or wants to weigh in on the public hearing for Bar Yoshi, that will be moved to another night. We'll do that when we get to that public hearing. Just if anybody is here for Bar Yoshi, that'll be moved. Okay, announcements. Rick, you want me to do that or do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Select Board meeting is being audio and video recorded. Review of the application for appointments to Council on Aging. This will be made on March 22nd, 23rd. Anything else we need to add to that, Erica?
Just that we have the one applicant, Rocky Fox,
Mhm.
and just noting that I know that it's not our normal agenda, committee appointment process, but because we just literally went through the entire process last month, we agreed that we could do a kind of condensed version just to fill this last vacancy.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, there's no follow-up comment from a previous Select Board meeting. Is there any public comment here tonight on items that are not on the agenda? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Is there any opening Select Board comments? Sorry, go back to that. Okay, Matt,
I'm sure there is. But
you're stirring up one?
we just opened last week and my head's gone. So
Okay,
I don't
all right.
know. Yeah, I'll do it at the end. I don't know.
Okay. Any public comment here on the agenda tonight in the room? Yes. Just hold off on that, Peter. Yes, back to Select Board comments. You're okay. You can stand there. Be a second.
With apologies for not remembering, I just wanted to say that next Thursday, a group of us are going to be traveling to Boston for a housing advocacy day at the State House. And I just learned this morning that we have, I think, 20 plus eighth graders from civics class who are going to join us on the trip.
Wow.
And they were asked to write a 1-paragraph essay on why they wanted to go. And that was sort of their ticket to being able to join the group. So I'm very excited to take a bunch of students to Boston to see the legislative process in action and to advocate for our housing mech bill.
That's great. Thank you, Brooke. Okay, back to public comment. Peter?
Peter Burke with the Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to remind everyone that the public comment period on the South Coast Wind Farm is still open on NOAA's website. It's on our website as well. I know they got a lot of press when the comment period opened, but it's closing early next month. Anyone who wanted to weigh in on either side is more than welcome to through those sites, links on our website as well.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, public comment online. Can we go to the first one?
Yep. So you've got Hillary Hedges report.
Hi, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Hillary.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Chair, I just have a question on the agenda that I was hoping you could answer. It's a very full agenda tonight with a lot of important topics that are important to a lot of different people. And one of the important topics is the question of the HDC organizational review and I guess implicitly the advisory committees. That's been something of concern and going on for over 6 months. And it's, it's under a town manager update. So I was just wondering if this was going to be a discussion, if there was any idea that there might be a vote, because I'm expecting that it's going to be coming up pretty late. And I think it would be appreciated by some folks if we could have some guidance on how the board
I can answer that, Hillary.
to handle
Sure.
that. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so it's just an update. We're not going to be making any decisions. It's for discussion only. And we do not have the independent review done yet. So there won't be any decision making or we're going to go this way or that way. It's just for a discussion. Dawn and I talked about this today in our agenda review. If it's getting to be 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we've not gotten to that, if we're anticipating it being close to 9:30, we might move that to a future week. So if the board wants to, we'll bring it up and we'll ask everybody, because come 9:30, discussions usually start to go downhill a little bit, unfortunately.
I'd say come
So-
8, they start to.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for bringing that up, Hillary. Can we go to the next one?
So quick question, follow-up. Does that mean, so if people were thinking of staying, they don't have to worry about staying then? Is that we aren't going to make any decisions tonight? What's that? I'm sorry. So we're not going to, on that topic, because I think,
It's just a discussion. I didn't put approval or,
are we given direction on the study? Is that part of, is it getting our input for what should happen for the HDC study, or?
I think everybody can make comments, but
I'm asking what the goal of it is, to have it on, just to talk about it.
I think you and Malcolm really wanted to put this on the agenda, so I wanted to put it on for discussion. It just happens to be, it's going to be really late. So I think we might stop around 8 or 8:30 and kind of see where we're at if we want to move it on. So to be fair to everyone, what I don't want to happen is if it's a quick discussion because we're exhausted at 10 o'clock.
Were you planning to take public comment on it as well, or no?
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
we do it.
Right. But I also want to leave, a good, 30, 45 minutes for that type of discussion.
Yeah.
And if it's that late,
I'll make a motion to move it right now, if that's okay, because I think there's a lot of people who want to talk about it, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it justice tonight. We've got so much. It was a huge agenda.
yeah.
I'd second that.
Any other discussion? Malcolm, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm concerned that it is an important topic that's that late on the agenda, and we're not going to do it justice.
Yeah.
Because I think there would be a lot of discussion, and maybe more than just discussion.
Yep. Okay. So anything else? Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to, if we're going to be asked to advise whether the framework looks good to move forward, I'd rather postpone it and have a robust discussion about it.
All those in favor by roll call?
Hang on, Erica.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. So I'm so used to doing the roll call.
I know.
We don't need to say people's name. Erica?
Sorry, I know this isn't the discussion part of this, but I will just note that next week your agenda is going to be a little heavy because you've got the select board comments to adopt. So that could take some time. So, and then we don't meet on the 29th.
Yeah.
So it could be April.
Thank you. All right. Can we go to the next hand up? Megan Perry?
Thank you, Jason, for taking my call. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. I wanted to thank Erica for emailing me earlier today to inform me about your February 22nd meeting. At the very end, Malcolm asked a couple questions about my public comments that I brought up the last few meetings. To that end, I just wanted to say that I'm not looking for the select board to critique town staff members publicly. I know that was the discussion that was had. What I am looking for is for the select board to create some type of policy or action plan so that staff does not decide what staff should and should not filter to the boards they work for. Because that's essentially what just happened with the conservation management permit. Staff received it. Staff said they thought it was either informational or it didn't involve their department, and they chose not to send it along to the boards that they are the administrator for or the staff members for. And that was a very expensive decision that staff made to not share information in the form of a state permit with the boards with whom they are the staff admins for. It also doesn't allow the public to see this. So the public was deprived of that. And this filtering is a little frustrating to me, especially when that information is very important to a taxpayer funded lawsuit that the town is currently in. So sending out an email saying, this won't happen again. It's not the same as creating a policy or some kind of action plan. So if you do nothing, all that it shows the public is that this isn't important enough to this board to do anything about it. An email is not the same as having a policy or an action plan moving forward. So this doesn't happen again. So staff doesn't have the opportunity to filter what does go to boards. Creating a policy or an action plan and discussing it, that's not going to jeopardize you guys legally. I know you don't want to discuss critiquing staff publicly. That's awkward for everybody, right? But the town has been trying really hard to increase the public trust in town government and transparency, something that you all should be striving to work towards improving, especially since the town has hired 2 different PR firms to help with communications. So I think I will rephrase all of my public comments I've made in the last almost 2 months regarding this. Will this board consider making a policy or an action plan regarding whether or not staff should be filtering information they receive, even though it is to be given to the boards, commissions, committees, whatever it is that they are supposed to be working for? Because by you guys taking no action, you're making a statement about this. This is not important enough for you to create a policy or an action plan regarding it. And I think this is a huge matter as a taxpayer, that the public was not informed of this and was deprived the opportunity to appeal. So I appreciate that you guys discussed my public comments at the very end of the February 22nd meeting, but it wasn't actually what I was looking for. I was looking for a policy or an action plan from this board, not just we dealt with it, we sent out an email so this doesn't happen again. So thank you very much for taking my call and listening to my comments since, I don't know, February regarding this. And I hope to see something. I'm pretty sure you can put it on an agenda item if you want, or maybe you and I could just talk, email, whatever. So thank you very much. And I look forward to some action being done.
Thank you, Megan. Is there any other public comment here tonight for items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on. There's no new business that I know of. Need a motion for approval of minutes for, minutes. Erica, we're going to table the minutes. Okay, we're going to table the minutes. Sorry about that. Motion of approval of Treasury warrants for March 15th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Short-term rental work group update. Hi, Stacy.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Great. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate that you let me come in here first, since I tend to have conflicting meeting at 6 p.m. So I am happy to report our group met last night after a month-long hiatus. We had a really great meeting, I think, where we spent the first hour or so talking with some volunteers from communities that have been struggling with short-term rental regulations and writing and improving and enforcing their regulations over the last 5 years or so. So we had a representative from Palm Springs, California. We had one from Scottsdale, Arizona, and another from Honolulu. And they shared some really interesting information with the group about their community's journeys toward regulating short-term rentals. And the group then really reflected what their key takeaways on that were. And then we talked about some additional policy, potential policy levers. So far the group has walked through in depth 3 different policy options, and we're going to continue to do that, walking through different approaches that they might use individually or in combination, and really exploring what would these levers achieve, what would the impacts be, what might some of the unexpected or unintended consequences be, how well does this meet some of the potential policy goals that we've set. And so our hope is that as we go and as we're waiting for all of the data to arrive, the group will still have the opportunity to really think in depth through a number of options that they identify as potentially promising. So at the end, we talked a little bit about the data analyst selection. So the group learned that the town has selected Process First to help them collect and analyze all of the short-term rental data from the platforms and also from NARAB's members, which we know is being compiled by a consultant that NARAB has brought on. And the group's first meeting with their Process First team will be at a subgroup meeting on Friday afternoon. That meeting has been posted and is available to the public. So if anybody's interested in joining and listening in, please feel free. I believe that a significant number of the work group members plan to join that meeting. And that will be an opportunity to talk about the scope of work that the data analyst team will be undertaking, and really getting input and buy-in from the work group. I will say that we and the short-term rental work group are really hopeful that the town is going to support the data analyst to expeditiously purchase any data sets that they might need from the platforms, so that they can do that. So whoever that Process First should work with to make sure that they can go ahead and purchase that data, that would be really helpful. And then we talked about the schedule going forward. The group recognizes that to some extent, it's beyond their control when NARAB's data, we know it's a complicated process, and NARAB is hard at work, and their expert is hard at work working on that. And that they've already made the connection to Process First, but we know that it's not entirely in the group's control, the timeline of when that data is going to be available. Nevertheless, the group has agreed that we're going to go forward with the most recent work plan schedule that we have put out, which includes continuing to meet every other Tuesday evening. We're going back to our 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. meeting times. And we're going to have a full day in-person meeting on May 4th. And I think all of the members of the work group are going to try and be in person if they can, so that we can really be productive. And of course, this meeting will also be open to the public, anyone who's interested in joining. I think we're happy to stream it online for members of the public who might want to watch it that way. But I think most of the deliberations are going to be happening in person. And then we are still hoping to have a public input session that I think is going to be virtual on Thursday, June 1st in the evening. And that will give the public an opportunity to weigh in on the proposals that the short-term rental work group has by then started to align around, so that they can make sure that they get a chance for some real public input on any real proposals before they finalize them. So that is my update, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. How difficult will it be to sync up all the different information? You've got NARAB, you've got this group. I know Nantucket together has scraped a couple off, and they had to do a lot of work to make sure that things weren't counted double, et cetera. So how tough is it going to be to sync the different data sets?
Yeah.
And to ensure that they've got a high confidence that they're right.
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and I'm not the person to whom the question should be directed. Unfortunately, I think it's a great question for the Process First team. And I would recommend that the select board invite representatives from that team to present directly to you as well, so that you can ask them those questions. You know, my role will be to work with them to make sure that they are being as responsive as possible to the requests and the needs of the work group. And any oversight that the select board would like to have, of the work that that team is doing, I think would be wholly appropriate.
Good question, Matt. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Stacy. Well before 6 o'clock tonight.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, this next one, I'm going to step away. I work for a nonprofit that receives funding from the CRC, so I'm going to recuse and Dawn take over.
This is a request for additional funding. Dorothy, did you want to?
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Our request came about after we were through our deliberations here, and it was clear through the newspaper and through parents that there was a problem going on up at the school. And one that we wanted to see if there was a way we could address it and help do a collaborative effort within the town and show that we cared, and that we were identifying a need, and a need that is clear and has been clear, but definitely the damage to the school showed us it was in desperate need. Our RFP, we did present our RFP or our suggestion to the FinCom. They did request that we do an article for the November special town meeting, which if in fact it doesn't pass tonight, we are more than happy to go ahead and do. We've already started the process. Our idea is to put together a collaborative effort between the major stakeholders that we already work with, which is Fair Winds, Health Imperatives, ASAP, NAMI, and Addiction Solutions, in hopes that they could come together and help us build a program that would work throughout the whole community. And when we're not talking just about the school, we're talking 0 to 25 years age group. And it's an age group, it's come to, one of the questions was, were we being specific to just an age group? And we feel that the CRC really does our due diligence to make sure that when we go through this process, that we are looking at the needs within the community, where those needs are, and how is the tax dollars being best suited for the needs in the community. And we did that through our first process, but this truly came about, and looking at it, we realized that is an age group that we don't have a lot going on for, and that preventive education is the most important tool available to this age group to stop the negative care of our bodies and of property. And so our hope was to get this group together and start a foundation that could be brought forth to every community member that's here. That means church groups, that means the private schools, it means the public schools, it means daycare, it means the Boys and Girls Club, it means sports programs, it means the drama program in any way. And these 4 stakeholders have the tools within them to help us come up with programs to be a foundation. The other key about it was, if we can get these 4 working together on this in upcoming years, there are federal and state grants that will continue this going forward. It will not be us having to come back to the town of Nantucket to do it, but we have to prove it once that it can work. And if we prove it works, the money's out there to do it. And so what we would want to do is hit this age group that is in dire need of guidance. And even if that guidance is getting them into programs that they can't get into, that gets them away from, negative activities, that's what we want to do. And build pride back in the fact that, that's a public building, that's your school, that you are the stewards of that building until you hand it over to the next people. And do you understand what that's all about being a member of a community? So this really came from what we saw as a really, really dire need within the community, that we knew that the one thing that we're really good at is venting where this money goes and how it goes and the programs it goes to. And we know that we've watched over the last few months, we've had a great collaboration going on within the behavioral health initiative. And some of these people, if giving the proper funding, can be the greatest tools that we can use to build a program. So that's basically where this came from. It was a need that we saw presented to the whole community. And how can we, when that's our specialty, is saying to you what we think is best for the community, how can we do it?
So more specifically.
Oh, go to the mic, Jericho. Sorry.
I'm just used to talking extra loud. My name is Jericho Mealy, Director of Human Services for the town of Nantucket. This specifically was a request for additional funding to help jumpstart a variety of youth-facing programs to aid and improve the early for education, prevention, and early intervention. All of these were pretty big gaps that were identified early on in the GPS study on behavioral health gaps here on the island. We believe a initial sum of money would allow us to develop a variety of different programs with the partners and stakeholders that we've identified elsewhere. And the reason we believe this is a pressing issue is because we are just sort of winding down from the pandemic. There are significant indicators of behavioral health crisis across the nation, and that funding for pro-social and socializing behaviors is in extreme need right now. We would not ask for this out of sequence if the specific needs on the island had not been identified after our normal grant cycle had gone, and if we believe that we could wait for another full year to release this money. So that's the reason why we're coming to you out of sequence and asking for a requesting for an increase in funding.
Board members?
Oh.
Matt,
Yeah.
Malcolm, go.
Malcolm.
All right. I just, what criteria have you established to measure success? I mean, it's just, here's some money. You know, how are you going to know that you were successful or not successful?
So specifically, we would be looking at a variety of different metrics. Primarily, we'd be looking at outreach footprint, so numbers of people contacted and responses back from that. And then, of course, once the specifics of the various programs are developed by the stakeholders themselves, we would be asking them to help develop specific metrics for success. It's a relatively simple process that we've applied elsewhere in the CRC, where the RFP comes into us. They have a set of metrics which they use to judge success, and then we evaluate based on that. Primarily, what we're looking for is longevity going forward, deep collaborative efforts between people. Some of these are qualitative metrics, of course, and then for more quantitative metrics, we're looking primarily numbers served and interactions with the youth of Nantucket, essentially.
I'm going to add to that. It's actually outcome. That's what we're looking for.
Mm.
We're looking to what our outcome will be. You know, it's we can say we want to serve thousands of people, you know, but really the outcome of what it does it make a difference? And does it help the process? Does it help the school district? Does it help the town? And does it help the parents?
And you'll be back next year to show us that outcome.
Me? Do I have to? No. Yes, I'll be back. And you know what? I guarantee you there will be an outcome.
Matt,
Yeah, if this is, if we recommend this be put to be voted in the fall, that works for you guys still time wise.
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
That it gets added to the fall?
Yeah, if we vote to support that to go this fall, that timing wise, you're okay?
If
would
that's what is going to be given to us, we're okay with whatever will be given to us. What we would like to do is get this implemented so that it's starting in September, or even we could actually have it running this summer, right? If it passes as of July 1st,
All right,
we
so
could have a program
sooner
running.
The answer is sooner is better.
Sooner is better, but
Okay.
we will take November if that's what we're told.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We're currently, apologies. We're currently following FinCom recommendation, developing a series of RFPs. We're going to try and work with stakeholders ahead of the approval of this so that regardless of the path taken forward, we'll be able to move as quickly as possible with implementing these programs.
And just one other quick comment. You are correct, I think, about sort of youth and the impact of COVID. We work with a lot of the cooking schools and the kids that are coming out the last couple of years. The lady that we work with there has said that they are 17 or 18, but the maturity is a year and a half, 2 years behind easy.
Mhm.
And all those socialization skills, they don't have yet. And it'll take a while for them to get, which was just, and I hadn't really even thought about that, until she spoke to us about a month ago and said, yeah, that's what we're seeing. So it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's made a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Brooke? So, Jericho, do you feel like you have a good sense of what the problem is? And because I'm a little worried that we craft RFPs on assumptions of what the problem is without really having understood the problem. And I know the Behavioral Health Initiative did some evaluation, but that information is fairly outdated given the pandemic in the interim. And I'm wondering whether allocating some funds immediately for sort of an updated assessment, which would bring the stakeholders together in terms of identifying what the priorities should be before you craft the RFPs. And I'm wondering whether this might be like a two-stage thing of a community assessment piece immediately followed by RFPs. And I would be inclined to do this sooner rather than later, but I sort of feel like we need to know what we're targeting in a more better understood way than maybe we have the information for right now. And so I might be inclined to recommend that we move forward with this immediately if a portion of it were used for an initial assessment phase with RFPs for programming to follow.
I believe so you are correct. The majority of the gaps that we were working on that were identified to the GPS study were identified before or during the pandemic. They were primarily qualitative assessments of gaps in services, which were considered to be, the term they use is systems enabler. It's another one is a force multiplier, which is a problem that kicks on to exacerbate all the other problems in the system. The quantitative difference between the study when it was done and now, I think, is fairly large, but I do not believe that there has been any fundamental change in the qualitative gaps measured in there. I am always a fan of more measurement and not assuming that you know the solution before you take a look at it, which is why I think we wanted to partner with existing stakeholders on a variety of different things, but also have a robust RFP process so that we could, like we do in the CRC and cannabis funding, find space to learn a new solution that we did not have. I absolutely think that a data assessment phase or a scoping process is useful on this. If that helps us get the ball more moving quicker, then absolutely, I think that is something that can be worked on.
So the other reason for that is I was involved in behavioral health assessment, and there was very limited input from the communities that do not speak English as a primary language in that assessment. And I'm very concerned that a huge portion of the population is left out of that assessment and that identification of where the needs are and what might be helpful. And so I think if we were to do an initial assessment of some sort and make sure that it was multilingual and that it worked very hard to outreach into our multilingual community, that I think we would have more information and better information to craft programming.
Yeah, and Brooke, I think that's where we have health imperatives, which is, as I put it, the most culturally competent organization running on the island. They have the tools within their clientele that they see, the amount of information they're able to get out. And they're one of our major stakeholders that we've actually spoken to already about working on this RFP with us. And that would be one of the big avenues that they would be going down.
And through you, Madam Chair, their patient population is a subset of a much larger population. And I'm very aware of this. And I want to just make sure we're reaching as deep into the community to find out what the needs are before we try to figure out how to address the needs. So that's why I would favor some small outreach and assessment multilingual to drive the RFP process.
I do absolutely think that there is a need to get more information on there. I tend to think that there is a point at which you need to start interacting with the system to start determining whether or not you're assessing the needs correctly. And my only concern on that is that the assessment period could end up delaying the action period. I think we can always be doing better to to hear the people who live on Nantucket and to understand what their needs are. And I think we can probably do a combination of starting to do processes while building in a data assessment. It's something that I've seen done in a variety of other contexts at this point. And I'm relatively confident we can kind of chew and walk gum at the same time. So.
You can't stand and talk at the same time.
Really nail it on that one. I got that there.
That was classic. Brian Turbitt's hand is up. Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, this was discussed at the Finance Committee, and they asked for town administration's recommendation. The Finance Committee did. And our recommendation was to consider putting this on the special town meeting for the funding. I don't think there was any disagreement that there's a potential need for this funding. However, there are a large number of unknowns as we head into the town meeting that have to be considered. And one of those is we are essentially right at the levy limit right now. We certainly have free cash that could be available to be used. However, we also have some unknowns as we head to town meeting, specifically around at least one of the enterprise funds. We are asking for an override for one of the enterprise funds. And if that is not successful, we will have to find all of that money somewhere to be able to fund that in the next fiscal year, which would have to be done before we set a tax rate. So the prevailing thought was that while this very well may be something that we should consider allocating funds to, that asking for and allocating it before we set the tax rate at the November meeting would give town administration more clarity on what the financial landscape looks like with the uncertainties of a few things that we're headed into the annual town meeting with. And while it's $175,000, $3 to $4 million locating in a budget is going to be a significant hurdle to cross if town meeting is not successful with some of their funding requests.
Did you have a comment, Brooke? Then I have one.
Brian, would there be room to allocate a smaller amount for an assessment process to get the ball rolling? $10,000 or $20,000 maybe?
Most likely we could probably find 10 or 20,000 in the operating budget to be able to do it after July 1st. I mean, I don't know that would need a specific allocation for that amount of money. But the large scale is we really need, we would prefer to have a better certainty about after the annual town meeting.
I don't think we can wait. Personally, it's not. I think that there might be other things that could be delayed to the fall special town meeting. I mean, I could completely support putting it on there, but I want to approve this in the meantime, and because this is a human services situation. This is a quality of life situation. This is something that's important for the community, and it rises above other things to me.
Would $20,000 get the assessment done?
We can't answer, we
You don't know yet.
can't answer that question for
Yeah.
you.
I
with the
don't want to
20,000.
delay it with an assessment that's going to take months.
Right.
I think that I think that the people in these organizations do have a handle on this. I mean, everything can always be improved, but I think that there are ways to improve it without a completely formalized process that could really just take a lot of time and not have programs in place going into next school year.
And our hopes, just to comment on that, our hopes are when we have a meeting scheduled for the 29th, where we were going to bring in the stakeholders for the first hour. And the second hour was every single program on the island involved with children were coming in, or the youth coming in to talk to us about it. And then that RFP would go out exactly mimicking what is being told to us within that scope, that we can get this done as quickly as possible. So, we already took the action forward as though we were moving in on the process, with the idea that I think a lot of us have a very good idea on what stakeholders really need to be in there and how we're going to best suit, coming up with a plan.
Is there further discussion? What are the board's thoughts?
Well, I agree that we should move forward on it quickly, but I also I don't want to, I understand Brian's concerns. And so I'm trying to, a part of me is thinking, is there another funding source, to get it started other than us, and we pay, and we bring it to town meeting after, or we make a motion to ask for Brian to find it in free cash and get back to us, something along those lines. Because you've got to have it, we've got to have it funded. If we're going to do it soon, we need to know where the money's coming from.
I mean, Brian, it qualifies for free cash because it's a one time, and then it should qualify for grant funding.
Well, I mean, I guess my observation of that, Madam Chair, would be that I'm not sure that there's any way that anyone could say that it's only going to be a one-time expense. I mean, historically, there have been other organizations that came in for CRC money and said it was a one-time expense, and they came back more than 1 year for it. So I will support whatever, and I will find a way to do it based on the board's direction. But I don't believe, as we sit here today, that anybody can say this is a one-time expense.
Madam Chair,
Well,
if I could just
can I just
state
make
that
one comment on that?
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, for the rest of the board, I would support increasing the funding permanently to $1 million a year for these programs. We had over 1.2 in requests. So the needs are obviously there. And I think the organizations that are working on all of our human service related issues on the island are very thoughtful and careful about how they spend their money. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Yeah, and this is an RFP. They don't come back saying that they're not going to need money. Everybody in the human services that comes forward. This is an RFP that we're putting forward with the idea to build a foundation, and the idea of it being a collaborative effort, which opens up them to grants outside of the town on this one issue itself. And there are multiple grants out there, but we have to prove a foundation in order to get the other grants, state and federal grants.
I think we're all in agreement, just how to get there.
Yeah. So I'm going to move that we direct town administration to find an additional $175,000 in the budget this year for human services. I'll make that motion now if we want to discuss it, and we'll take it to a vote.
Can I ask for some clarification, actually, because are you asking for fiscal 24 budget? Or are you suggesting that we try to find a way to do this in fiscal 23?
No, fiscal 24.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, fiscal 24 budget, and we could also support putting it on the fall town meeting.
I've made it. What's the process? Does somebody need a second so we can
I'll
discuss?
second it. So we
Okay.
can.
Okay. So I guess the question is, will it need to go to fall town meeting if we approve it and get the funding in and move them along in an RFP? I don't think it needs to go to fall town meeting if we're asking
Wherever
for it
the
to be.
funding comes from could be reimbursed. Am I thinking about that the right way?
Oh, if a grant were found.
If the appropriation was approved at fall town meeting.
Yeah, it would flow to free, and if it's not spent, it would, if it's repaid, it would flow to free cash. I think you're right.
Okay. Am I thinking about that correctly, Brian?
Well, if it was approved at the May town meeting, it would be available to be utilized beginning July 1st. So you would have really no need for a fall town
Now
meeting.
But there's not an article on for May. Or
Well, if
it
you-
would just,
I mean,
or
if
you're saying it's now going to get incorporated into
We would
the
have
main
to ask the
budget
finance
article.
committee to
Okay,
make a
I get it.
technical amendment.
I get it.
I'm assuming that that's what the motion was essentially asking town administration to do. And if I'm wrong, I apologize.
No, that was my
No,
intention,
that's
to move
right.
it forward so that they could issue an RFP and get programming in place for September for school.
Okay.
I
Beginning
just
of the school year.
confused the situation.
And so then we don't have to worry about next year until next
year.
cycle. Yeah. So this takes care of this cycle.
Yeah, as a one-time allocation to
Right.
pilot programming in this area in human
Okay.
Fiscal
services,
24.
as clarification.
I'll second it again because it's even clearer.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Just wait for Jason to return.
Thank you, Don. Okay, request for acceptance of surrender of common victualler with seasonal alcohol beverage restaurant license for the club car.
Yes, thank you.
Amy?
This precedes a hearing later for a new license at the location. The current licensee is a seasonal license, so it's not in operation right now, but we're in renewal period. So we ask for and have a conditional surrender of the license pending the final approval of the new liquor license as well. So asking for you to accept the surrender so we can move forward with a hearing later for the new license.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, on to public hearing number 1. We will open the public hearing to consider the renewal of private shellfish aquaculture licenses held by Simon Edwards at 28 Kelley Road. Is this you, Amy, or is this?
Nope, this is Jeff
Oh,
Carlson.
Jeff,
He's
is he there?
online.
Oh, hi, Jeff.
Yes, sorry, I'm online today. I'm a little scratchy. But we're here tonight to request the renewal of Simon Edwards aquaculture leases, his 10 acres. As our letter stated, Simon is in good standing, meets all the requirements, actively works all of his leases. He's a excellent grower. And we're recommending the full 10-year renewal period for his licenses. I know he's here if people have any questions specific, but again, we're recommending that full 10-year renewal period.
Thank you, Jeff. This is a public hearing. Any comments from the public or the board? Seeing none. I always look to my left.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pleasure of the board.
Move approval of an additional 10-year lease.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I think all the public hearings are going to go that fast tonight. Number 2, a public hearing to consider adopting surface water and groundwater protection regulations. Roberto, hi.
Good afternoon. So this is just the regulation that we brought up back in July of last year. We did all the alterations that were originally asked for. You do see the regulation on the packet today, and really just wanted to see what the board's feeling was as far as thoughts and the pleasure of the board, and if they wanted to vote it in or push it to another time to vote.
Thank you, Roberto. This is a public hearing. Any comments from the public or the board? Brooke?
I just had a question on the timeline for mapping and submitting maps for every property on Nantucket within a year. It felt a little tight to me, given the limited resources of camera. And I just maybe, I don't know if David's here or Roberto can answer. If every property who has some stormwater system on the property needs to map, I know that the sewer department cameras are busy on other projects, and I don't know that there's a whole lot of vendors who do that work. And is it even possible to get that done in a year?
I don't know if it says within the year. I think it's within the year of the permitting, or with Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that. Because I guess I'm having trouble walking and chewing gum at the same time, like Jericho.
So I just saw the year.
That's happening in your office quite a bit.
Let me look for it while anyone else asks for.
So, sorry to interrupt, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
So it is part of that where we're looking for people to document their existing discharge. It's pretty simple. It's more of a map, parcel, street address, what it is, a sketch to like where it's starting and where it's going, and then any photographs of the system. And I think the aim of it is to capture an idea of the number of systems that are tied into things like municipal stormwater system without any knowledge of what it is. Like, just as an example, we always use, if you open up the manhole on Easy Street behind the Dreamland that flows into the bulkhead and that direct discharge to the harbor, there should be 2 pipes in that, and there are 9. So we're just trying to track down where those other things are coming from, and a little bit of, responsibility to the people that have installed those. Some of them are sumps, some of them are, gutters and things that are put subsurface, but to just try to get a handle on that and see what the scope of coming to terms with that capacity really is.
So I'd be okay with it as long as we realize it may be more challenging for people who really don't know what's on their property to figure it out.
Absolutely. We would approach it in the same way that we approach our septic systems, where as long as we know they're working on it, they're not going to be enforced against.
Great. Thank you. That helps.
Okay. Yeah, questions from the board? No.
I just have the same comment I had last time. I just want to make sure that you have all the resources necessary to, one, enforce this, and also importantly, public education.
Absolutely. So with the I don't know if you saw the job that got posted recently, that with the new public information officer as well as the old public information officer, we'll be working together on a new outreach campaign for all new regulations as we move forward. And this regulation, similar to the septic IA systems, is going to be done as permitted, as found. So we do have the capacity to work on it as written.
So well, please raise your hand if at some point you or Jeff do not have the necessary resources.
Absolutely. We always squawk if we don't have it.
Roberto, that was outreach, but your other part was the enforcement. Is there a lot of enforcement with this, or are you going to phase it, Roberto, because it's a new program? And
no, the enforcement is going to be in the same manner as the septic systems. So like as they come up is where the enforcement happens. So it's kind of a you fix and map through attrition.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was one on comment LG9 on number, what was it? In our packet, it's page 25. She asked, how would we make sure of this? All temporary discharges shall meet federal water quality testing standards prior to activation. And Libby's question was, how do we make sure of this? And I don't see that that's answered anywhere here. So I guess that's a question.
Sure, if I may, I can address that. So we've had systems in the past where we've had that design come in, and if it's an area of concern or that water is an area of concern, we've had them file a simple water test of what the chemical constituents of the water are to review prior to activation of the system. I think if people are looking for ones where it's worked well, we had one on Holbert Ave where there was one that discharged across the beach into the Sound at one point where they had to do that. Or I think the more visible one was one where he had that same testing in place when they redid the old Cumberland Farms, and there was the tank right on Orange Street, and they were discharging into the stormwater system across there. We've already done it multiple times, so I think the procedures there and the testing resources there. And then it's just to be done prior to activation. So if they're doing the install of the system, they can pull that sample and process it usually within 24 or 36 hours. So it's usually pretty quick.
Right. And then on the pools, I'm reading the discharges on the pools, and it looks like it's got the chlorine pools fairly well, dechlorinating the pool, 48 hours before any draining, who's going to check that, et cetera. But I'm wondering, it says everything's going to comply with requirements 105 CMR 435. What does that say about saltwater pools?
It's the same process.
And how are we going to handle them?
So 105 CMR 435 is the regulation set by the state for public and semi-public pools. So what we're doing is actually taking the regulatory portion of that, the water quality portion of that regulation, and adopting it. So anytime that the state changes it, it automatically adopts on ours. What that state regulation does is sets performance standards. So for both saltwater and freshwater pools, as well as spas and even float tanks. So float tanks, which is a highly concentrated saltwater, small pool, you can't just discharge that. So there are entire state performance standards for that. So it hits all of those types of pools. And then I know there was a second part of the question, Matt, but I'm blanking out on it.
I think that was it. My concern is there are some communities that don't allow saltwater pools to be discharged at all because of the, they are creating forever chemicals in the process. And so I think that's why if the state is taking care of it and we're following that, then we're fine. But I just want to make sure that we're not doing that. We are following it. That's all.
Yeah, by adopting 435, we're just preventing the reinvention of the wheel.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they're more lenient on the chlorine because after a few sunny days, 7 days, 10 days, it dissipates and goes away, and you can easily test for it with a test strip. But the other stuff is very difficult to get rid of. So that's why I want to make sure that we're, being careful about that. We're doing a lot of them, and if the impact is hurting, you're hurting the waterways and hurting the water system, it could be part of, it could be some of the problems that we're facing. So I just want to make sure that we are doing something positive. So.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone else? Okay, can we go to Emily Molden, Erica?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. I just wanted to offer a general comment of support and thank Jeff and Roberto for bringing these regulations forward. I think it's an important step in the town's ability to work on managing matters of stormwater. And then I guess while I'm at it, I would also just make a comment of encouragement to the board and the town to sort of reinvigorate the process to work on a stormwater bylaw and overall stormwater regulations for the island, which I know has been started and in process, but that would also be another great addition. But I mostly just wanted to thank Jeff and Roberto for bringing this forward and voice some support. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. One other question, is everybody fine if we're going to adopt this tonight with all the, the strikeouts and the track changes? Do we need to see it come back, or are we okay making a motion of accepting all track changes?
This morning, I was not okay with it, but I think it's time to move this forward. So
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Just want to check. Okay. Any other public comments?
Just a quick one. We'll be more than happy to send a clean version once we've accepted all changes to you.
Thank you. Dawn?
How much input have you guys gotten from the pool companies that do the servicing and drainage?
Surprisingly, not as much as we would expect. There was a few comments asking, are we going to be spending the $50 every time we do a temporary temporary discharge? And that's not true. The pools we're asking for just the filing. The filing, what this does, it gives us a way to regulate the pools that we didn't have before. But we're not trying, we understand that there are over 1,000 pools on the island, more than closer to probably 5,000 at this point. So we're not going to be getting that. We're just asking them to provide us the information so that it's not, we're trying not to be onerous. And once that information got out, it was kind of surprising. I think we only heard from like one or two.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that the people who actually need to do this are totally aware and, provided any pros and cons of the process.
Absolutely. And that will also be a process with our PIO where we're going to be reaching out to them. We have a list of all the pool companies provided to us. So we'll email all them directly as well and walk them through the process.
Okay.
The other thing that this does is I can't remember exactly which part, but it says that you have to take care of the discharge on your own property. And, and you would have thought that's what's the big deal. But I've recently seen some pictures where, we've seen it on Pilgrim Road where the discharge no longer fits on the single property. So it's going down the street or it's impacting the people next door. And then they have to put berms up and raise their house and the other two people have to do it. So it really, I think it is, and there are ways to take care of the water on site, but you have to plan for that when you're doing it. So And that's in here. So it's saying that people have to, they can't just run it to the street. They have to take care of it, which is interesting.
Can we go to the Campbell Sutton? Yep. Go ahead, Campbell. Can you hear us? Campbell, if you can hear us, just unmute yourself. No, she's still there. Do you want to take her out, bring her back in, maybe? Okay. Wait, one more second. Okay. Would you like to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any motion?
I move motion to adopt.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It
Aye.
passes unanimously. Thank you, Roberto and Jeff, and everybody who worked on this. It's a great step forward.
Yeah, thank you guys for the time and consideration.
And thank you so much. It's a big help, and a quick shout out to the Water Coalition. They were a big help with a lot of the information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Okay, we'll open the public hearing to consider the continuation of sidewalk outdoor dining permits in downtown area. Amy, this is you, I think.
Anything that says license, not always me. I know how to pack them in, huh?
Yep.
This is a, good turnout. Okay, so we do have a lot of hearings this evening, and they were grouped together in like-minded way. So I'm going to, before each group, I think, review the guidelines or anything that you need to consider that will apply to the subsequent and related hearings. So the first, as you mentioned, we're going to discuss outdoor dining permits, specifically sidewalk seating, which is on town property and sidewalks. And subsequently, we have 3 hearings that are going to be adding space that was used in outdoor seating during COVID on private property. So just quickly, in the packet, we have outdoor seating guidelines through the ABCC and what you need to consider when we approve these areas. A couple things of note, as a local licensing authority, the select board has the discretion to apply reasonable conditions to these service areas, such as a requirement of food service and or seated service, as we've done before and recently. All of these areas must include documentation demonstrating, the right of the licensee to occupy or permission to use that outdoor alcoholic beverage service areas. In our case as well, in this first hearing, this includes permission, as you remember, to transport alcoholic beverages over public property when there is a disruption between the seating and the building. Outdoor areas should be contiguous to the licensed building with a clear and direct view of the outdoor area. Always recommended that there is active supervision by the licensee of these areas, especially in the case when they are non-contiguous to the building, but they must be able to be seen from the interior of that building. And again, and this one point, which I know previously I spoke with legal counsel on, is that all service areas and outdoor areas must be enclosed by a barrier, fence, or partition sufficient for the licensee to maintain control of access to the area and to provide a safe environment. As we review outdoor dining on seating on our sidewalks, the one concern was on Nantucket, unlike maybe something in Boston or Cambridge where they have much wider sidewalks, where they have the ability to put some of the seating up against the building. So they're only looking to rope off one area of it. It's a lot easier. We don't really have that ability in a lot of the areas. In addition, we need to maintain depending on the type of sidewalk, 4 to 6 foot ADA required pathway for the public. So I did speak to council about it, and I think we agreed that as long as the area is defined, certainly it is certainly close to a public walkway, but doesn't need to be barriered in rope and other type of ways just to mark the area as a licensed area is sufficient. So we can continue to consider that as well. If I will go back to just talk about why we're here today. As we've discussed, all of the pandemic related allowances for local approvals of these spaces expire on April the 1st of this year. Those with outdoor extensions granted through this program must apply for a permanent alteration of premises for their liquor licenses, which we'll see this evening as well for private spaces. In this case, we are talking about the town policy that we started last year, really after the first year of COVID, to issue sidewalk permits. This includes sidewalk permit conditions, then also fees that we approved also last year for the use of town property on the sidewalks. I have attached that and haven't proposed anything really new, similar fees. And what the proposal here is, and what I'm asking for us to discuss this evening, is the town's consideration of continuing this program for those in the downtown area that do not have outdoor seating areas that were approved during COVID, to allow them to continue to be issued or to request and then hopefully be issued permits for that service. And then they can apply at a separate date for alteration of premise, which is required with the ABCC approval in normal course, as these other folks are doing. So again, we are just approving the terms and conditions of the agreement that we will issue for these permits, and the fees. If the board does approve those, then I'll work with the applicants to file their alteration of premises to be heard, hopefully April the 12th meeting.
So, Amy, the new piece of this that we didn't have in the pandemic is they have to go get the alteration of premises now.
Correct.
So
the
that's another
pandemic, correct.
month or whatever, however long it takes.
Yeah, and the whole state, everyone's doing it. So yeah, it might take a little bit. Hopefully it's starting to get a bit quicker. But yes, during the pandemic, they allowed us to make those decisions locally without having to go through that process. So
can they do this in parallel? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Can they do it in parallel tracks? Can they come work with you on the local part and apply?
Correct. Yes.
For the premises alteration at the same time. So it's not, they have to wait on us by the end of April and then they got to start the process.
No.
Okay.
If you approve that this evening, I will start tomorrow morning, send out the alteration application so that they can file those. So no, that will be along the same track. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. So it's just official to add it to their application and their licensed premise. So yes, we'll get that done. Oh, I'm sorry. What I meant to say was that the alteration requires a public hearing. So that's why we have to file it for that later meeting and advertise for it.
Okay. So it'll be two steps through this board.
You approve, and then on that same evening, we can approve the local permit, because when I file the alteration of premises with the state, they will require a signed agreement with the property owner, be it a lease on a private property or agreement with the town, as well as approval to transport alcoholic beverages across a public sidewalk.
So if we approve this tonight and everything goes well, restaurants could be open out, and outdoor dining could be ready by June.
May. I would expect May. And I certainly at this time of year, they love this, call the ABCC and go, we're seasonal, right? We've got like 8 weeks for this. So I do ask for favors at that point, and they understand that it's time sensitive, of course. So I think we should be okay, because these have been approved and then just gets put officially on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, just as a process, are you only going to bring forward sidewalk areas that have worked in the past? Or are you going to vet that? Or are you going to count on us to vet that? And how do we ensure that we get the input necessary if there's been an issue?
Right. So that's a good question, and have considered that as well. I think to do this fairly, we certainly set the parameters, which we do in the conditions, and certainly set what you think the intention and goal of this program is, which I did kind of work on this through COVID, being that we were focused on, because our lack of sidewalks, we don't have a lot of, real estate to deal with, but people loved it. And it's something I think would be great to continue. However, it was really focused on those that don't have outdoor space. Last year I got a request from a outfit that has extensive outdoor space and a very small sidewalk. And I did say, I don't think that's really our focus right now, but I think it is fair to, especially if there's any new folks that have come in that have a proposal to bring it forth, that we would certainly consider it. But I think we need to be very specific as far as what your thoughts are on the restrictions or parameters, what they may be.
It will be similar to, let's say, a liquor license. There has been issues here. They resolve them, or there's been issues and they're not resolved.
Right.
Will that be reported to us? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, we need to know that.
Yes.
Also, another thing I'd say is, if someone didn't ask for it during COVID, when it was an absolute necessity, I would be less willing to be thinking about it now if it's interfering with a sidewalk, because I would have thought you needed it then. So so from a policy standpoint, maybe we are not as friendly to those because they didn't use them before. So I think that this is sort of, because a lot of what we heard was a lot of people loved it, but there were a lot of people who said this was an inconvenience and et cetera. So we have to make sure that we're balancing both uses.
Correct. Absolutely. And I think, I try to keep things open because I can't think of every possibility maybe that we've missed. However, I think, that shouldn't be a problem there too as well. So I think the other part too I wanted to mention as well is, if we look at the agreement that was proposed, similar to what we looked at last year, it's a revocable license, because as the property owner, essentially, as if someone had violated a lease, if there is an issue, then you have that right to revoke the license. And that is written into the agreement as well, so that, this is your property. And I also recommend that it is, during renewal period, it is a renewable agreement. It is a 1-year agreement. We're not looking at 3-year, 5-year agreements. It is a yearly situation. And if there was a consistent problem and you removed permission for the property, it would have to be removed from their premises through an alteration of premise as well with the state.
Anybody else? Brooke, you good?
No, I just want to clarify. What we're doing is we're setting a policy now that we are going to allow licensing of public spaces for outdoor dining, and then we will review each application one by one.
We're
as they
allowing them
come
to
through.
submit permits.
Right.
Applications.
Yep.
Right. In agreement to the terms that as we have put them for the town.
I think we had a 3-year pilot project, and we got better each year, and some things we didn't wasn't working. We stopped it. They changed, not to call anybody out, but there was some, it got better. So I feel like, I don't know if we would do this the first year, but in year 4, I think we've worked out a lot of the problems. So
If I may, I'll just quickly, the top points in Exhibit A with this agreement refers to the hours of operation. They shall not be used beyond 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. We have some other conditions that are stricter on certain locations, such as on Main Street, we had only dinner only. I think we will look to remain with those same conditions. Entertainment, there's no entertainment on these sidewalk seating areas, music extra. It is just for that seating. Certainly maintenance and trash is a very big thing. We had some issues with that but we I think dealt with them immediately. And the folks in the establishments that had the issues jumped in and worked on it. So I felt like we had great response there. Of course, the ADA requirements in those areas are very important, and we'll look to maintain those as well. And they're responsible for the sidewalk dining, furniture, accessories that must be removed as requested, especially in weather incidents as well. I've asked them as well to not buy anything new, because also one thing I want to point out with this is, and I've talked to Holly over at +2 with HDC, a consideration that should we move forward, that we are going to bring that forth to make sure that we all are consistent with how this looks. We don't have a fence here, black barrier here, white one here, that it's consistent, most likely similar to a rope type stanchion, so that it's a consistent look for these spaces as well. So that will come up. And the one thing we had some issues with is the allowance to have umbrellas in certain areas with the logos, because during the pandemic, the quick turnaround, we allowed for them to get them free from some vendors. So we had alcohol graphics on it, things of that sort. They still were there last year. I asked for them to be removed, and it wasn't always the case. So that needs to happen. So we're going to look for some consistency on that as well.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty strongly that it made sense during COVID. Like
Yeah.
people need to move quickly, but the logos and the alcoholic has to be a non-issue.
Correct. And we've been clear about that. So I don't want to have to repeat that as well. And then other things, heaters, other things like that require certain permits and the liability insurance as well for the town as required. So those are the things we included in the exhibit there as well. The revocable license agreement, similar to other towns as well, as far as liability and their responsibilities and the town's ability to have a hearing or remove this if there are violations. And then lastly, the sidewalk dining fees, I proposed the same that we did last year, based on if it's beer and wine license, type of number of tables, starting at 1,000, 1,500 if there's more than 4 tables, all alcohol license 2,000, and then all alcohol 4+ tables 2,500. And we were consistent with it must stay within the envelope of the building. It can't be extending over to your neighbors and abutters, that it's within their space. So that seemed to work well last year. So.
All right. Is it a public hearing? Any comments before I go to the public board? Okay, we go to Mary.
Thank you, Jason. Mary Longacre, speaking as a private citizen. I don't see that there's any location defined in this. And so I have the question and a comment. The question is, does this apply island-wide? Could this apply in Sconset or Mattocket or Old South Road? And then my comment is that I hope that Main Street will not have outdoor dining. I just think that it's too much to add to the traffic there. It is our most heavily commercial street. A lot of the storefronts are very close together. It's also our most iconic historic destination for people coming in, first thing to Nantucket. I just don't think that outdoor dining is a positive addition. I think it creates chaos on the sidewalks. It obstructs people trying to go about their daily business, trying to do all sorts of things. And so I would hope that Main Street would not allow outdoor dining. But getting back to the question of location, if you can, please.
Thank you, Mary. I can comment on I think the good compromise is going to find just dinner on Main Street. We switched to that, I think, in this last year, and it worked out.
Correct.
Because there is less traffic after 5, 6 o'clock.
Correct.
Most restaurants don't even really get going until 5:30. They're bringing the tables out.
Right.
I thought that was a great compromise for Main Street.
Correct. And that location in particular has a very heavy takeout during the day. So that was an issue too. They have a line plus tables. So we felt that it was just too much for that they had that service. I think the complaints I got, there's a couple people that complained people were putting the drinks down on the table waiting, but they're going to do that regardless. If we put benches there, they're sitting and waiting for their orders to be ready and stuff. So, but we did get complaints on that situation. And that's why we had requested that just dinner only. But again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the location question.
Yep. So the location question is this is centered in the downtown historic district, generally in the bordered by Main Street and Broad Street in the square up at Center and down towards the boat basin for those locations. There's really no application elsewhere. Most everyone has space and it's a different location. It was a downtown core that we did it. So basically from Backyard Barbecue up towards Lemon Press might be the highest one. And then Broad Street as well. Broad Street was a lot easier because they have much wider sidewalks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on the board?
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes.
I would make a motion to approve this framework, and then we'll be seeing them on case by case basis.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Amy,
Thank
for
you.
walking us through that.
Okay. So now we have a few hearings that are addressing alteration of premises for outdoor spaces on private property locations. They as well have to file for an alteration of premise. First
Amy,
up,
I just want,
Oops,
I have to open the
Oh,
public
I'm
hearing.
sorry.
That's okay. That's right. I try to make Erica happy. Keep her
okay.
happy. Open the public hearing, consider application of alteration premises for Kitty Murtaugh's. Okay.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. So we are talking about Kitty Murtaugh's, and I'd like to thank John Keene and Casey, who are here on a holiday week for them, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. So we appreciate the time. And as Mr. Keene knows, they are our star for the week. Did all this, got their planning board stuff done, and an excellent application. So he gets our gold star for the week. I appreciate all the effort they've done. And what they are requesting is an addition of a space they used as well during the pandemic on their outdoor side. The outdoor patio itself contains 7 tables with a maximum occupancy of 50 seats and a service bar. They did get the modification of the special permit that and is similar to what we dealt with Lola last month, whereas when they use this outdoor space, they will not be using their basement dining area. So it's not an increase in occupancy. So that's the trade-off there as well. So that was approved as well. And I know Mr. Keene has been in good with talking to his abutters and the neighbors into, especially ahead of this week and any sort of situation to make sure that he's constant communication with them. So I appreciate the effort that they've made in that area at their facilities there. So the alteration will be for that area as well, and no increase in occupancy on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any comments or thoughts from the board or public? Brooke?
And is that available for use any time of the year if the weather permits?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And if I may add to as well, it's not an addition of entertainment. It is purely for food and beverage service, seated service outside. And it's a service bar only on the outside.
Okay. Any other comments? This is a public hearing. Okay. Don, our public hearing closer.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
It's a good world.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll open a public hearing to consider application for alteration of premises for annual all alcohol beverage restaurant license for Charlie Noble.
Thank you. So this for the Charlie Noble is adding the outdoor area on the exterior of the premises that face Easy Street for that patio as well. They have included the narrative sent to the building department and approved, which will, in this case, there is no exception where they use this space and not using indoors. They are adding these seats. It's a 970 square foot patio, contains about 11 tables with a maximum number of seats at 52. And again, I added some of the reminders on those umbrellas and other things in the back that they be compliant with HDC regulations in that area as well. And this is not a special permit or other situation, but they did get their COI updated with that occupancy. Is 140 total for indoors and outdoors.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Any comments? Questions from the board?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Thank you.
I used to do that at HTC.
What's that?
Used to do that at HTC a lot when it was something we'd seen and they'd made all the
Yeah,
changes.
just give me a chance to say, oh, that passes unanimously. All right, on to number 6.
I'm gonna recuse on this one.
Okay. All right. We'll open a public hearing to consider application for alteration of premises for a seasonal all alcohol beverage restaurant license for the proprietors.
Thank you. Yet again, we are adding some outdoor space, excuse me. They are asking for approval of the space allowed in their outdoor patio area, approved during COVID. This is, boy, did I put, hold on. Trying to see the number of seats for her. It's a, I didn't. Let me look that up. But it's just a couple of tables, I think 4 or 5 tables on their outdoor premises, and they are the owner of the property. So it's not an additional request.
It's similar to the last two. They
Yeah,
pretty much
correct.
the same that they did.
I just didn't
during-
have the right exact number, so I wanted to look that up, but I believe it's 4 tables in the outdoor patio area on their property.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. There's a sentence in here, it says, we will have no change to storage or service of alcohol for these tables. Does that mean they're not planning to serve?
No, she's just mentioning that there's no additional storage area being added or any change to her storage facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
just
that was just an
confused me.
extra.
It
Yeah,
sounded like they
sorry.
weren't going to serve alcohol. I was like,
Yes,
wow,
yes,
Like a bar outside or service
Correct,
bar.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. They're just going to add the tables. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dawn.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That carries 4-0. One recusal. Thank you. Okay, we'll open a public hearing to consider application for multiple amendments for seasonal all alcohol beverage restaurant license for fishing in the Spade, DBA slip 14.
Yes, thank you.
Right to the DBA.
Yes. So slip 14, we are doing a couple outdoor seats and a couple additional amendments and administrative that they need to do here. So alteration of premise, they are asking for, let me see, a couple of tables on the exterior, 3 more tables for people each located on the east side of the premise on contiguous to their current premises. They're also changing some ownership interest, adding some LLC members, Brennan Connor and Timothy Farley. And lastly, there is a change of license manager, the change from their current manager, Jonas Baker, to the proposed manager, Timothy Farley. We have all appropriate documentation for all of this and information from the new manager that is required. And just addition of those small area next to their building as well for the tables.
Any questions on this?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So are these additional seats or in lieu of indoor seats? And do they have all the
Additional.
permits for this?
Yes, it's
their occupancy?
additional. Correct. It's attached, and I'll make sure I'm correct. I know they're here, but that's correct, right, Jonas? There's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's just a little different than the last 3.
Yeah.
So-
Hi,
Correct.
Jonas Baker. I'm one of the partners in Slip 14. Yeah, it's I started this process back in 2015 when we started the occupation, and we've all been through this for many years now. But I tried to get this initially started back then. COVID hit. And I'm bringing it up to speed real quick. I took 2 partners within the business, spent time with my family, Timothy and Brennan. They're working partners. That's why there's a change of beneficial factors here. Along with that, COVID hits, wonderful summer of COVID. So I decided to take some time with my family. That's when I took the partners. That being said, now that we're back to it, we've used it for the last 2 years. When, and in fact, it's sunny out, we use the outdoor tables. When it's not, then we use the indoor table. So there's really no change of occupancy. It's just a flop of when, and if it's sunny out, we'd rather have people outside. And when it's not, we'd rather be inside. So that, and in full disclosure, I am now a partner in the Brotherhood of Thieves. So I just want to put that on the table. That's why there is a change of liquor license. Jamie Strabano is still the manager on the Brotherhood. And I'm just being released from this one because I'm spending more time at the Brotherhood now. So I just want to be full disclosure there. Any other questions or comments? Timothy's here too, if you need to speak with him.
Thanks, Jonas. So do we have 3 things here? So we could just say you motion
Yes,
to
we
approve
approve the
all
multiple
3.
amendments application as
okay.
presented. Correct.
All right, any other comments? Brooke, you okay? Everybody-
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm so glad that you're all here, so we don't have to do roll call tonight. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Erica, remind me on number 8, we have to open a public hearing and continue it.
Open the public hearing and motion to continue to the date certain noted on the agenda.
Okay. So we'll open a public hearing to consider an application for Bar Yoshi. Is there a motion to?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to April 12th as requested.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Recuse,
Okay, that's 4-0.
Abstain.
abstain.
Abstain. Okay, number 9, we'll open a public hearing to consider an application for alteration of premises of seasonal all alcohol beverage hotel license for Nantucket Island Management, DBA White Elephant.
Okay, so just as we start this, I want to say this hearing and the subsequent one for Grill 23 are related. So I'm going to explain that in a minute, but just I'll be speaking about both of those as well.
Amy, is this 9, 10, and 11? It's all 3, right?
Yes, technically I'm going to probably cancel 11 and I'll explain that.
Okay.
So we are doing an alteration of premise here, as you mentioned, for the White Elephant Hotel Residences at 19 South Beach Street. This is a different type of alteration than we've done normally. This is removing some current licensed premises from their area. We've described that it's the main building, which is known as Building 11, consists of the ballroom, kitchen, dry storage, and bathrooms located on the first floor of the building. We've attached a plan. And again, one addition here is that we are making this effective as of June 20th of 2023. And I'll explain why that's necessary. In the next hearing, we're going to be discussing a new liquor license application for a restaurant that is requesting to be in that space for a limited period of, I think it's 6 weeks at most, but for a limited time period this summer. I want to say that I know this is different. This has been vetted. We have certainly the attorneys for both White Elephant and the next applicant online and here as well to get further into the legal requirements here, that this has been vetted and discussed with the ABCC as well to make sure that we're going down the right road here. So what this application is asking is to remove this area from Building 11 from their licensed premises as of June the 20th, 2023, meaning that if approved here and if approved up at the ABCC, as they know this is coming, that they will able to be used that ballroom. They have some things going on with the wine festival and other things, which is why we made this effective a later date. But as of that date, if approved in both areas, it will no longer be licensed to the White Elephant residences, and they will not be able to serve from their storage or from their account or license during this time period. And then we will discuss in the next hearing the application for the new license, but I want you to be aware of the reason and what's coming next when making that decision. So I will leave it a little bit right there and see if you have questions as well for that, so that can maybe help direct you.
Questions?
Yeah.
Brooke?
So this is it's technically a permanent alteration, but if they don't do the same scenario the following year, they would have to come back and re-add this square footage to their license, do another alteration of premises if they wanted to go back to
right.
the
So
operations that have existed. Right.
That's the plan is actually, and I believe Mr. Baudet behind me will get into the legal area there, but our expectation is that an alteration of premise will be filed shortly within the next week or so, to probably be on the April meeting, to have an effective date to alter it back so that they may continue with events and such in August. And perhaps it's best I leave it to the representatives to exactly explain the situation, but it is to alter it for now for this opportunity. And we certainly will explain why and why Grill 23 wants to come here and what the operation is going to be. But I will possibly leave more of that to the representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Amy, as well. Rick Baudet for Nantucket Island Management. The best way I can describe this is exactly what you have done before. Some of you might remember with the Jared Coffin House and Prime. So this Nantucket Island Resorts owns the Jared Coffin House. We extracted all of the kitchen and Prime's dining room, and then and the lower dining room as well, so that they could operate their restaurant there. So we are doing the exact same thing here with the White Elephant Hotel Residences. The quirk to this particular application is that it's slated to be temporary. They are going to operate from June 20th, or they'll operate in less time, actually, through July. But the effective date would be June 20th. That will end July 29th. And as Amy said, the further quirk to this that you probably have never seen before is that I will immediately file, because of the long time period it takes to get these licenses back from Boston. I will immediately file with you, and I'll probably be back here next month, to ask you to reverse what we're asking you to do today, effective July 30th, so that there's no interruption in service on either end. The purpose of this being temporary is twofold. Grill 23 wants to try this out, and it's our hope that they'll be back here in the future forever, or for multiple years. In addition, it's their 40th anniversary. They are renovating their Boston restaurant, and they want to keep their employees employed. And so they've worked out an agreement with the hotel residences to come here during that time. So in any event, that's the gist of what we're doing. Like I said, it's the exact same thing we've done at the JC House, with a temporary nature. And you'll hear from their attorney on the next application, and that's the new application to license exactly what we're requesting to extract from our license. So again, our license will be ongoing, but we can't serve in the ballroom, in the kitchen. We will have separate storage like we already do. The rest of our hotel will still be completely licensed, all the rooms, the pools, everything else. We're just taking out the ballroom and the kitchen and the storage related there too. So happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Any questions for Mr. Bodette? Okay. This is a public hearing. Any comments from the public? All right. Don?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes. Any thoughts on the motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes 4-0. Okay, on
Creative.
to 10 and 11. Or 10. Yeah, right.
Yep.
We're not gonna do 11. Okay. We'll open a public hearing to consider application for a new common victualler with seasonal all alcohol beverage restaurant license for the DBA Grill 23.
Right. So as we discussed, since we're getting into new liquor licenses and we have 3 of those applications, if I may just review the liquor license public hearing process, just a couple things so I don't have to repeat myself for each license, as we're prone to do. So as far as a hearing process, especially in the case of new liquor licenses, we have to obviously do what we've done here with the opening of the public hearing. When we're talking about new liquor licenses, an approval and denial process, and I bring this up every single week or every single month, is that what this is based on, and when you're making these decisions, is that we work pursuant to MGL 138, Section 23, and the Valerian versus Licensing Board of Boston, whereas your denials and reasoning must be based on reasonable grounds. And they prefer findings be based on the following, which we discuss in each application, but the appropriateness of a liquor license at a particular location, the number of existing dispensaries in town, the views of the inhabitants of the locality in which a license is sought, traffic, noise, and size, typically for new locations, the sort of operation that carries a license, and the reputation of the applicant. And I will review that when making decisions if you have questions there, but to keep those things in mind when we do these. So got that out of the way. So we are talking about this new liquor license here at 19 North Water Street in the premises that were just approved to be removed from the White Elephant Villages. This is for what is going to be DBA Grill 23, as Mr. Bodette mentioned, a group with, I believe, at least 4 restaurants in the Boston area, looking to bring their establishment here for a month or more. As highlighted in the lease, a couple of things. We're going to review as per their lease and agreement with the location. The permitted use is as follows: only as a first-class, high-quality restaurant with table service, serving food for on-premise consumption, including without limitation sale of alcoholic beverages as well. And during the term, service will be between 1:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. and dinner to be served between 5:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. And the premises shall be used for no other purposes. Also, in terms of the lease, as I've discussed with them today, there's an exception for a couple of dates where there are planned events in that ballroom space. Two, I believe, nonprofit events, and we just made clear, and they certainly understand that it'll be served from Grill 23's license, and they will be providing a liquor service for that area as they are the licensee. So that's important to point out that during the term of this, they are the liability for that space. It is their liquor license, and it shall not come from the storage or the account of the White Elephant. So we had that discussion today. They're certainly aware of that as well. So I think that is the basic overview. Unless any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just a little confused.
Mhm.
The first one was 19 South B Street, Building 11. This one is 19 North Water, Building 11.
Oh, that might have just been the last one was an error in it was in the AIS, but the application was correct.
Sorry, that was probably my human error.
No, it's probably mine. I had a lot of those this week.
Because that's the back of the building is 19.
It's 19 North Water, I believe, is the official.
Yes, it
So
is.
that's really the back of the building.
That's how the assessor has
It's
it
the
listed.
back entrance. Okay.
It's the official license on the license on the application. And I
Any other
believe
que-
too as well that the manager, the proposed manager, Matthew Harrington, is correct, is here as well, is on the call as well.
Any questions for anyone, on the board? Matt, would you like to add anything?
No, but if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them for you. Did you hear me?
Yeah, yep. We can hear
Okay,
you.
sorry.
I think we're okay. We do have
Okay.
one. But stay tuned. We have one hand up. Can we go to
Thomas Miller.
Thomas Miller?
Good evening. Sorry, this is counsel for Grill 23, Attorney Thomas Miller and Attorney Stephen Miller. We were trying to get on and just had trouble. So obviously Amy and Attorney Bodette were very clear. We're very excited to come to Nantucket for this time. Grill 23 is celebrating their 40th anniversary, and they have other great restaurants in Boston, and they just think they'll have a great time coming to Nantucket for even the short period, but hopefully it'll be something, as Attorney Bodette said, that will continue in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Yep.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries 4-0.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That carries. Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Bodette.
I do just want to note, I very fondly remember the Harbor House restaurant that was in this location. And they used to have a piano player where I would dance with my grandpa.
Oh.
And I think it's exciting if it works out.
Okay, so Amy, on number 11, do we
So the comment on number 11 is, usually with these, we put in the entertainment license as well separately. However, with further discussions about the two events and other things, they would only have limited background music for the restaurant. And they also have two events during this that would require other entertainment. Since it's a local license, we don't need to remove the White Elephant Villages from that license. And this restaurant is not asking for anything in addition. So we're going to leave the entertainment license in the name of the current licensee. It doesn't need to be legally changed. So, and they are able to do, live entertainment if needed for that event. So during the two events that are happening, I think during this, the tables will be removed and things of that sort. And I believe they'll have other entertainment. So I think we can leave that entertainment license. It's not necessary.
So we're
change it.
withdrawing this?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a long way to say that. Yes.
We needed the context.
Yeah.
Is everyone fine with that? Okay. All right. So we're going to move 14 and 15 up next. So we're going to do club card next.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody. Fish Mark, you just got to wait a little longer. So we'll open the public hearing to consider application for a new common victualler with annual all alcohol beverage restaurant license for the club car.
Great. So as we did earlier this evening, we did the conditional surrender of the current licensee, Nantucket Club Cart LLC, pending the approval of this license. So this applicant seeks new licenses for this location. Different, almost similar, however, difference being that they are requesting an annual all alcoholic beverages restaurant liquor license as opposed to a seasonal. Again, seasonals are April 1st to January 15th or any portion thereof. This would be an annual license, allowing them to serve outside that time frame as well. The applicant here this evening, One Main Street LLC, and the manager, proposed manager, Matthew Sullivan, is currently also a manager of the tap room, the Nantucket tap room as well. So is looking to come in here and looking for similar type of licenses again, except with the annual license there as well. He is here this evening. No extensive or any changes to the premises as well. And then hopes to start operations after some cleanup and touch-ups later this spring, if approved. Any questions?
Thank you, Amy. Kim, would you like to speak?
Excuse me, Kenneth Gullicks, and I represent the applicant. Be glad to answer any questions. Sullivan's here as well. I think you're familiar with the property. Presumably Mr. Sullivan is, Amy said the big change is it's going to an annual rather than a seasonal. Other than that, if you don't have any questions.
Any questions from the board? Brooke?
Yeah, I guess what are you anticipating in terms of your schedule of operations on an annual permit versus the seasonal? I mean, are we going to see another year-round restaurant, or are we just talking about through stroll or?
Right now,
Can you come to the mic and just state your name?
Would be like a 10-month restaurant. I think February, March would be our downtime, but earlier opening in April. And now that January is pretty busy with Martin Luther King Day, and it works well for the restaurant to keep the staff employed with, they get 8 weeks off and the rest of the season on. That's the schedule that seems to work for me right now.
Thank you.
Question. Okay, anyone? This is a public hearing. Anyone else? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and is there a motion? And with the motion, you need to also do the determination as well.
So moved. With both?
Both.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Just because you weren't here, just say.
Right. I
Yeah,
will
okay.
abstain.
Yeah, we'll abstain. So that passes 4-0. Okay, number 15, we'll open a public hearing to consider an application for a new live entertainment license for the same thing, the club car.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Matt. One more. Very easy. So this hearing would be for the entertainment license for the club car, and they are asking for the same type of license. It is a live entertainment license. What was allowed prior to which is instrumental music, vocal music, streaming music, some TVs as well, and no additional amplification from the system. We discussed this. Obviously, they have the live piano bar, which is going to continue as well. And the building is up to code as far as sprinklers and up to fire code, and that would be required for live music. So is requested to continue.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Any comments or questions? No,
Motion
no.
to close.
Go ahead.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That I met.
Aye.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Didn't want you guys to leave, and if there was a question or
Thank you.
the public raise their hand or, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, everyone for the fish market, thank you for waiting. Just wanted to get everybody through. All right, number 12, we'll open a public hearing to consider the application for a new common victualler license with the seasonal wine and malt beverage with Cordials Restaurant license for Straight Wharf Fish Market, DBA Straight Wharf Fish Market. This is at 4 Harbor Square. Before we start, I'd like to just set up how we would like this to work tonight. So I think we're going to use the model of the HEC appeal process. So this is a public hearing and anybody can talk. However, once we start getting to the same comments being repeated over and over again, whether it's for or against, I'll probably ask to, we're probably going to move on. So what we'll do is Amy will walk us through, she'll open it up, and then we'll go, the applicants can speak, as many want to speak. And then if anybody is against this, then they will be able to speak, and we'll go back and forth for a while. But when we get to the point where I think there's a lot of support and a lot of people against this as well. But let's say for the supporters, if there's 25 people with their hands up who want to say, I love this, they're great, we should do this. After the 5th or 6th one, we're probably going to stop that. So I just want to not have this here for 2 hours and just try to set it up. And we'll try to be as fair. We want to make sure that we hear everybody, make sure that everybody feels heard, but within reason. Okay, Amy?
Great.
Thank you. Real quick,
Yeah.
clarification.
Sure.
I'm not sure whether I could recuse or not. I haven't sold to them because they haven't opened yet, but one of the principals owns a business that I do a fair amount of business with. So I'm kind of.
We have John Giorgio here. Do you want to?
That's what I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah, John, you there?
Yes, I am.
What do you think Matt should do on this? That he may be doing business with them in the future.
So I think if that is reasonably foreseeable, Matt should recuse himself.
Done. I'm recused.
Okay. Okay. Amy?
Okay, great. As you mentioned, we're here to discuss Straight Wharf Fish Market at 4 Harbor Square. The first hearing here is for a common victualler, which is seated food service with a seasonal wine and malt beverages with Cordials restaurant liquor license. And additionally, after this will be a non-live entertainment license for the interior spaces. As we know, this location has been the site of food establishments in the past, mostly takeout, and recently known as Straight Wharf Fish Store and Stars Ice Cream. There is no history of a liquor license at this precise location. Again, as we've discussed the considerations in this area and the answer to this one in particular, the appropriateness of license at this particular location. As we mentioned, no history of one here as well. However, it is obviously in the downtown district within walking distance of the majority of restaurants, shops, and transportation for the island. And also it is adjacent to several residential structures on Old North Wharf. So it is both. As far as a number of existing dispensaries in town, and again, this number has probably changed a little bit in the past month, but adding package stores and on-premise licenses, we're probably at 102, which is a lot for this size location, but that's the number in the entire island. Views of the inhabitants we'll get to. Obviously, we included all the public comments that had been received as of the time the packet was posted. Traffic, noise, and size. Again, there are 5 to 6 similar licensed establishments within 500 feet of this location. The applicants and reputation of the applicants this evening for the license currently operate the adjacent licensed establishment at Straight Wharf and have long-term experience both in the restaurant industry on Nantucket. A couple of things I want to read and go over based on the comments so far. Number one, just let's go over the description of what is being requested here. The layout and site plans for this location has been included. The application is for adding I believe 62 seat. I want to make sure I'm correct with that restaurant with 48 interior seats and 14 seats being on the harbor side dock. There will also be takeout service in addition to the on-premise dining area. There are no plans for a bar. This is only seated dining. Again, and this question has come up in the past, if they wanted to add a bar or make any alterations to anything that is approved, they would have to return for an alteration. So as of this application, there is no bar. Expected hours of operation that they're requesting are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. There are no plans for late night service at this time. Again, before we get into comments and for the applicant to speak as well as to what their plans are, based on, I know what some of the comments have been. I shared this with some of the comments as well, but something from KP Law I wanted to read because I know a lot of the discussion is regarding further review by other boards and other permits as well. And I've had this question in the past where this has come up, whether something required further planning board review or other such review. A couple of things. Every time we have a license discussion, we issue a conditional approval, meaning when you approve a license, it's conditional upon the applicant completing everything that is required to actually open a restaurant, whether that be an inspection by fire department, the building department, health. You're issuing something with that condition always. So just to make that point as well. In response to a question I had as far as what happens when we have a license application in front of us that may require additional review by specifically the planning board. This was for another application, but again, I want to just read this into the record from KP Law. The attorney said in his opinion, licenses for both the sale of alcohol and for entertainment have a relatively short time frame to be acted on by the licensing authority, the select board. So if applications are filed by the applicant or any other applicant, they may require approval from the zoning or planning boards for either or both. The select board would need to schedule and conduct the hearings as we've done. If approved, the vote to approve may say, with such license to be held by the select board pending the applicant's receipt of all other mandatory licenses or permits or the like, which we certainly do in every case. He says, as you know, MGL 138, Section 16B provides that if a local licensing authority receives an application for a license to sell alcohol, it is supposed to be granted or denied within 30 days. This often gets exceeded, but technically an applicant can appeal to the ABCC if the licensing authority has not acted. It also says, moreover, there's a case law from earlier stating that the local licensing authority cannot refuse to act on an application because it believes that the applicant will be prohibited by zoning from operating at the location, which is not the case from what I understand. So I agree that the select board may either deny the liquor license or approve it pending ABCC approval, but also condition actually issuing it until the applicant gets what it needs from the zoning and or planning boards. That is really how we operate on every license. We do not issue that license until such time as we get, as required, the fire safety certificate, which is a COI in our case, or a health permit.
Amy, is that just understood, or do we need to actually put that in the motion?
No, that is more guidance for you from legal counsel, from town council, just based on the comments that we received in this process to make sure you understand that you can, obviously hear these comments. And if you make that decision, you need to act on the license application. Okay, however you want to do that. And we can discuss it as you get towards your motion or your decision, what those parameters are. But just to know that you can move forward and act on this and have to act on this application, regardless of any determination that further planning board or other board review is needed. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave that there.
Okay, thank you, Amy. One other thing I forgot to mention is please talk through me or just talk through the chair, because there will be rebuttals and you'll be commenting on something that the opposite viewpoint said. And please don't use names, just talk through me and just say the abutter or the applicant. And let's just try to keep it as civil as possible, but have a really good discussion. Okay, would the applicant like to speak first? Yeah, and multiple people can speak for the applicant too. Just please state your name.
Thanks so much for making the time for this. It's gratifying one way or the other to see that there's that much interest in it. And we're truly,
Can you just say your name, please?
Sure. My name is Gabriel Frasca, and I'm here representing Straight Wharf Fish, our proposed venture at 4 Harbor Square. One way or the other, we value the comments of everyone on this, and we hope we end up at something that makes sense for the community, as well as for ourselves. But basically, what we've proposed to do is take this fish store that's been dormant for a few years and turn it back into a top-notch, full-service, quality, local fish market. Kevin has 8 years of experience running 167, both on Nantucket and in Charleston. This is his wheelhouse, and something that we think we are well positioned to do, something that would serve the community at large. Basically, if you want fish in town right now, you're looking at Stop and Shop, and we think we can do better than that. Beyond that, the second half of the building, the one that was previously stars and storage. What most people don't realize, the building's got a bigger footprint than you might think. A lot of that space was storage, and a lot of that space that was storage is space that is on the harbor. And we'd like to make that a clam shack. It's restaurants I grew up going to on the North Shore. This is simple family food. We don't want a rowdy bar. We don't want, loud music. We don't want anything other than to have a place where you can go without a reservation, walk in and get a good meal at a reasonable price in town and potentially on the water. It is true that outside on the dock, where previously there were 3 picnic tables which seated 18 people, we have moved to put 14 seats. And we don't think that the small reduction of seats there will be deleterious to our business. Beyond that, though the space inside would seat, I think by basic square footage metrics, 70 people, we've proposed 48 seats, and that's what we think is a reasonable amount, both for us and for the space in general. And it is also true that we want to serve beer and wine with our food. I think that not only is it typical of the style of food we're talking about, it's what our guests are going to want. And the decision to not put a bar in was a conscious one. There will not be a bar in the future. We also don't want to be serving liquor. We want beer and wine to be enjoyed with our food. There will not be cocktail service. We propose the closing time of 10 p.m. Yes, we've also asked for music, which I know has come up a bunch. This is 2 or 3 Sonos speakers. These are the size of Amy's coffee cup there. We're not, this isn't amplifiers. This is not, we will not be louder than the High Line. We will not be louder than the steamship. We will not be louder than the harbor launch. We will not be louder than Straight Wharf or Gazebo or, so on and so forth. Not even close to it. And I hasten to add that, I too, in a funny way, am in a butter. My income right now derives from Straight Wharf. I don't want to have a mess next door any more than anyone else. I don't know if it makes sense for us to jump into now some of the complaints that we think will be raised, but I think for the moment, that's as much as we'd like to say. we were kind of psyched about this. We thought it'd be, we think it'd be a really nice addition. I think that thing is a hidden jewel on the water, and we look forward to, sharing it with people. That's kind of it.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Right. He said, yeah.
Thank you, Slug. No,
Okay.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Any questions for Gabriel now? Okay, I think we'll, anyone else for the applicant like to speak? Online or here? Okay. Would anybody like to speak against this?
Good evening, Sarah Alger. I represent the Old North Wharf Cooperative. The cooperative owns the property directly abutting this property. In fact, one of its units is within 12 or 18 inches of this proposed use. I think it's unfortunate that this is before you tonight, because I think it's better when the appropriate permitting has been gotten from other boards and agencies before a permit lands here, because then it's had the opportunity to be vetted for neighbors to fully speak and talk about the things that concern them.
Sarah,
And
can you just lift your mic up? a
Sure.
little?
and conditions, including what can be indoors, what can be outdoors, music, noise, traffic, how trash is handled, all those things can be properly vetted before the application plops on your desk. Now, I understand that you can, and you probably should, act on this license tonight without those permits being in place. But I think it's too bad, because they have never gotten the amendment to their Chapter 91 license that they need to do some of this work. They're putting in a new cooler, that's new footprint. So there's DEP involvement. Their Conservation Commission permitting that they received a few months ago doesn't match what they're currently constructing and what they've currently applied for. So that's all going to have to be redone and revetted. So that's another process that will have to be gone through. And then there's the situation with the planning board. I know that NIR doesn't agree, but I believe that this project triggers the requirement for a major commercial development special permit under bylaw section 13911. Under 13911, you're supposed to look at commercial uses on one tract of land or contiguous tracts of land, either in common ownership or under common control. In this particular case, where this property is located, it's also where the tavern is located, Crew. It connects all the way over to the other wharf. So Bar Yoshi, Slip 14, all of these commercial uses. And it's what's happened since 1979. Well, just this restaurant in and of itself, the threshold is rated, a restaurant bar having rated occupancy of 100 or more. This is a 62 seat restaurant. If you start adding in what the rated occupancy will be, including all of the staff, you're bumping up pretty quickly against 100, just this particular use. But then if you start looking at what's happened on the wharf, all these contiguous parcels under common control and common ownership since 1979, you're suddenly looking at something like 385 additional rated occupancy, at least, with the addition of the tavern, the gazebo, which back in 1979, you probably remember, some of you, it was like a band concert place where people would come and listen to a band concert on a Saturday afternoon. It wasn't the bar that it is today. The Bar Yoshi wasn't even there. Slip 14 has been very much expanded So we're well over the 100. So it's clearly, in my mind, going to hit that MCD threshold. And it should go before the planning board and be permitted and be vetted and end up subject to the conditions that all the other MCDs in town are subject to. I mean, almost every other commercial use that I can think of in town is subject to an MCD special permit. Why should this property be treated differently? In addition, I think their application was incomplete and maybe slightly misleading unintentionally, I'm sure, but if you look at page 266 of your packet, you'll see under change of use, they said no. But in fact, this is going from an ice cream shop and a fish store to an ice cream shop, fish store, and 62-seat restaurant. A restaurant is not takeout and it's not retail. It's clearly a change of use, and that should have been disclosed in the liquor license application. Under planning board and zoning, that field isn't even completed. And some of the other fields aren't completed as well. Putting all of that aside, just looking at the criteria for the issuance of a license, I don't think that this license reaches that criteria. We have so many licenses in town. They don't need a liquor license to run this operation. You can have a clam shack without serving alcohol. We have a lot right in that general area already, a lot of licenses. This will bring traffic. It will bring excessive noise. You'll have people waiting outside. There'll be lots of talking and milling, and in addition, just to the use itself, the trash, the dishes, the silverware, the clattering. There's no history. This isn't the relicensing of an existing facility that had alcohol in the past. There's no history of there being any licenses for this structure. So I would urge you not to grant the alcohol license. Let them operate a clam shack as what it is, a clam shack for a year or more and see how it goes. I think that would be a much more appropriate way for them to handle this. But that's not up to me to tell them how to handle it. I would urge you not to issue this license. If, however, you are inclined to issue this license, then I would ask you to put yourself in the position of where the planning board would have been had they been asked to vet this ahead and impose some pretty serious limitations on hours of operation, noise, how the trash is handled, and condition any permit that you issue on their going back and getting the appropriate permits, the Chapter 91, the Conservation Commission permit that they need, the amended notice of intent, and most importantly, that MCD special permit. So thank you. I would say nothing outside. If you're going to agree to do this at all, at least start them out with an inside restriction and a very early close. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Alger. Anybody else like to speak? Yep, come on up.
Hey, my name is Henry Sanford. I'm here on behalf of the owners of 14 Old North Wharf, who are members of the co-op, but respectfully disagree with Sarah Alger. I think it's what she all talks about is I have to commend her, the excellent presentation. But people were milling around with the ice cream shop. We're abutters who look forward to the offerings that they're going to give us. And I just wanted to make it known that it's not unanimous. We're just two people, but they're nonetheless. So we do support it as abutters. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Good evening. I'm attorney Danielle De Benedictis, and I represent Charles and Ann Johnson and Harvey Jones, who are here with me today. We flew here from Florida in an effort, in spite of the storm, et cetera, to make our utmost opposition known to you on a personal level. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson live 18 inches away from this proposed new restaurant. And make no mistake, it's a proposed new restaurant. It is not a fish market. We have no objection to the continuation of a fish market there, or to an ice cream store, or to takeout. We oppose a sit-down restaurant. There's no need for another one on the wharf. We have 5 restaurants on the wharf containing 650 seats. And I'm talking about just Straight Wharf, not even the other wharfs. And this is more than enough for a very, very small area, 350 square feet. Within 350 square feet, we have presently existing 5 restaurants with liquor licenses and 650 seats. We don't need any more. We don't need any more destruction of the character of our waterfront. And, if this restaurant is allowed to open, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's bedroom is 18 inches from where there will be a new 62-seat restaurant with outside seating. There is no comparison to the previous use to what is being proposed. And, Attorney Alger has hit upon the fact that this was not disclosed in the original permits. And I offer to you that perhaps the original permits would never have been issued if it was disclosed. And I've been in touch with the DEP today, and they're very concerned about this as violating the Waterways Act, and we will pursue that. And so there is so much here that is not in compliance with existing law. And then I ask you, it's very interesting. Amy Baxter is so much better at this than I am. I thought there were 86 licenses on the island, and she tells you there are 102. And meanwhile, there are only 71 on Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is twice the size of our island. Do we need another liquor license on this island? Even serving wine and beer? Do we need another restaurant? We're only a very, very small island, and we have taken great pride in distinguishing ourselves from Martha's Vineyard as a less commercial island. Yet they have significantly fewer licenses here than we do. It's shocking. I did a comparison between all of the towns on the Cape, and we have more licenses than most towns. We don't need another license. We do not oppose Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, Harvey Jones, who's here with me today, and other members who live of Old North Wharf, who live so close that they won't even be able to use their porch. I'm sure you've seen the pictures. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's porch is within 18 inches of this restaurant. There'll be exhaust fans coming. The idea of all the fried food that would be served in a 62-seat restaurant. If this is really an effort to have a family restaurant, this is not a family restaurant. A family restaurant is a takeout. Let's go back to what we had there before. Don't we pride ourselves in what has been the history of this island? The history of this island was a takeout food place there, along with the fish market. And we do not oppose the continuation of that, but we do oppose a modern $1,275,000 has been spent on this renovation. Do you think that this is going to be a family clam shack? It's only common sense that it won't be. And it's only common sense that my clients are going to be deprived of the peaceful enjoyment of their premises. And, we all know that one of the shining stars of the wharfs is Old North Wharf. Are we going to encourage people not to live there? Will people be seeking to make Old North Wharf commercial? How can anyone live within 18 inches of a 62-seat restaurant with an entertainment license and a beer and wine license? I urge you not to approve the licenses before you, and if you should consider approving them, I would join with Attorney Alger in saying, please deny any outside seating and deny any music. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Bodette? And after Mr. Bodette, we'll go to online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Bodette, I represent Nantucket Island Resorts, as you know, and I don't have much to say, but I do want to just disagree with a couple of points. I do not represent Gabriel and his partner. We were not in any way involved in this permitting. But as Sarah mentioned, I do disagree that the permits are not in order. I have looked at the building permits. I think they were validly issued. But as I said to Sarah today, as I mentioned to Paul Murphy and the Plus Department, and also I mentioned to Danielle as well, to the extent anything isn't in order, then, if, in other words, if we need to go get an MCD special permit, I will admit that, Sarah, I disagree with Sarah that some of these wharfs are contiguous. I disagree that we need an MCD, but I will admit that she's raised a good point about the occupancy in totality. And I think that bears looking into, and we'll do that. And to the extent we need to go get an MCD, we'll go get that. But we're not worried about that. And I think at that point, Danielle's clients and her clients, if that happens, we'll get another bite at the apple to vet this and voice their concerns. And but I just wanted to put your mind at ease to say that, we'll get any permits that we think are necessary, or that the town thinks are necessary, or that DEP thinks are necessary. But at the moment, we don't think that's necessary from the building standpoint. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bodett. Amy?
Thank you. A couple of comments too, and I will probably want to ask Mr. Giorgio some questions too. So as we get towards discussions on that, a couple things. Their application is complete. Obviously, the town application is just to help me have the discussion and replaces the letter they used to submit. So that part is fine. That they didn't fill every single line on that. So I want to do that as well. The difference in numbers, Ms. DeBenedictis was correct in the 84, 86 that you mentioned was probably just in reference to on-premise licenses. I included off-premise licenses, which are package stores. So that was the difference in that number as well. Entertainment, which we'll get to, obviously is required. Anytime that we're talking about liquor, we attach an entertainment license on it. And sometimes just so we have an ability to work with them if there's any issues, even if it's just quiet background music, which this is. It's a non-live entertainment license. So that's why that is added there as well. It's not to add any sort of additional loud entertainment, and it helps us manage that as well. So, and I will eventually think asking town council about your ability to review any conditions that are added by another board would be a good question to ask too, if that does come up. As far as the planning board, and when we received this application, we did ask that question. I do agree. I was questioning whether continued ownership was an issue there, but it was determined at the time it did not require additional didn't qualify, did not require it. So obviously that question has come up, needs to be responded to. What I read earlier in the meeting happened earlier, but we've had this issue before, whereas someone went through the whole process, built the building, came for a license, and we denied it. Or you denied it because there were too many or whatever it was. And we felt at the time that here someone goes through, puts through all the money, builds this, and then the town is not issuing a license. In some cases, their whole business plan is based on obviously liquor. And should we be reviewing these earlier just to see, where the town is on that? So I think that's why the question was asked in these cases, to understand what the town's position is on a license at that location. So that was kind of where that question came from earlier, but our understanding was it didn't require it. So that's why they didn't go for it up to this point.
Thank you, Amy. John, you came on and unmuted. Did you want to say anything? Mr. Giorgio?
So, Mr. Chair, I've been listening intently to this hearing discussion, and I agree with Amy in terms of her opening remarks, which is that the board should act on this license application within the 30-day period. To the extent that there are other permitting issues, whether they be Chapter 91, whether they be zoning, whether any special permits are required, with all due respect, I suggest you defer to the building commissioner, who I understand has issued the building permit. And if he determines, based upon the requests for zoning enforcement, that another permit is required, then the applicant should pursue that, that application. The board's, that is the select board's discretion here is limited to whether this is a suitable location. And you may, if you decide to approve this license, you may condition it. But that condition should be limited to, I think Amy gave you the language before, but basically subject to obtaining all required licenses.
Thank you, John. Any other comments from the public? Good.
I have, I'm Chris Sleeper. I have a couple of things. Just want to ask if it is appropriate. I got a letter from one of their abutters crew, Nantucket, that they would asked if I could read on their behalf after my comments. Is that all right as well? Cool. Sleeper. And I rushed over here all the way from Amelia Drive after work, so I'm sorry I have my phone, but duty called. So as I said, I'm Chris Sleeper, proprietor, Pip and Anchor, and the new Culinary Center project on Federal Street. Generally, those who know me would probably say I care deeply about this island community as a whole, its members, businesses, its entrepreneurs, and especially its food system. I wanted to stand here not only to represent our business, but thousands of community members in favor of Kevin and Gabriel's project on Straight Wharf. I happen to work at Straight Wharf for 8 years in nearly every position, but most recently as general manager for 6 of those years. The dining room, which stands on the other 18 inches away from the fish market, is arguably Nantucket's most iconic. It's been operating quietly for almost 50 years now, and it's part of the draw of having a cottage on Old North Wharf. It's what makes downtown Nantucket Nantucket. Additionally, it's peaceful, quiet, an enjoyable place to enjoy food, beer, wine, with significant integrity and thought behind the cooking and its selections. Since 1976, we've watched this amazing community grow to over 80,000 people in the summer. And unfortunately now it's hard to find a seat to enjoy a lobster roll and a really good glass of wine. We can't keep growing without another place to grab a seat for good food and drink, especially when you can just walk into. If anyone wanted to create a buffer from the hustle and bustle of the summer crowd on the island, it would be Gabriel and Kevin, whose lives and families depend on the success of that dining room. They both raised families here and together represent over 30 years of experience on that wharf. They are Straight Wharf. Straight Wharf and these two have an outstanding resume, and I've had the pleasure of working side by side with them for many years. They're trusted community members who've been responsible for licenses with excellent reputations, both here and, as Gabriel said, down in Charleston for Kevin. I worry that if we let a few voices who have the means to afford a lawyer outspeak the majority of Nantucketers, we are setting the wrong precedent for the future of food, hospitality, and tourism on this island. And I believe the majority of this year-round island community stand with Kevin and Gabriel, and I hope they are granted the license they deserve, because we could all use a little bit more accessible approach. We could use a more accessible, approachable location to grab food and drink with the utmost integrity behind it. Thank you. And then Jane Stoddard sent me this from Crew to read for you because they couldn't make it. They're working on a project, a pop-up down south. Good evening, Select Board and Nantucket community. On behalf of Crew Restaurant at One Straight Wharf, we'd like to formally express our support of the application for the Straight Wharf Fish Store. Over the past 11 years, Gabriel Frasca and his team have been tremendous neighbors. From the professional sense of encouraging guests to venture into town on a summer evening to enjoy both Straight Wharf Restaurant and Crew, to the neighborly sense of lending napkins when a delivery is missed. We welcome another quality and dedicated food and beverage venue to our neighborhood. This is a valuable contribution to the vibrant restaurant community that helps provide more amenities to our year-round and summer island communities who support us and our staff all summer long. We consider ourselves very lucky that there are so many fabulous restaurants in Nantucket that entice guests to leave their homes and support our businesses and our staff. At Crew, we often say, quote, "A rising tide lifts all boats." The potential of this addition to the restaurant community does exactly that. Respectfully, Jane Stoddard and Carlos Hidalgo, proprietors at Crew Nantucket.
Thank you, Mr. Sleeper. Any other comments from the public? Oh, I'm sorry. I said I was going to go online, Erica, to Kenneth Stanley.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my opinion. I want to speak in favor of this application. I'm a homeowner on the island, but I started coming in 1978. And I remember when the gazebo had a bandstand, and my two children were little at the time, and they loved dancing there, but you can't go back. But you can't go forward. And I think going forward with a clam shack, the way Gabriel has described it, is a perfect addition to Nantucket. I think it's going to add value to the island. It's going to add value to its visitors. Nantucket's known, unlike Martha's Vineyard, it's known as a culinary destination. And I think something even as small as a clam shack is going to add value. So I would speak in favor of this application. I would look forward to having the opportunity to visit when it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Any other comments?
My name is Harvey Jones. I'm a 30-year resident of Nantucket, 20-plus year owner of cottages on the wharf, and one of the officers of the Old North Wharf Co-op. Sarah, I think, did a very good job of presenting the structural view of the co-op itself. I wanted to, my comments relate more to, I submitted a letter, and I'm not going to repeat that letter, but just listening to the conversation here, I personally have no issue with the operation of a fish market and the ice cream operations. It was done very nicely in the first venue, and I'm sure it would be done very well in a new venue. I also have no objection to a clam shack on Nantucket Island. My issue is the location of where that clam shack is. It is literally abutting the Old North Wharf. It will damage the quality of life on the wharf. And to have an operational restaurant of 60 plus continuous, no question, it will be busy. When there was conversation earlier about the tables on the deck of the ice cream shop, those 3 picnic tables on average had 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 kids with their parents licking an ice cream cone. There wasn't a continuous turnover of tables and people eating dinners. The notion of people on the deck, as well as music, potentially music flowing out of the restaurant, and the activity in and out of that restaurant will be a major change to that particular venue. And when you're that close to a residential neighborhood, I think you really need to take that into account. No objection to Gabriel doing his restaurant anywhere else in town, but doing it on the edge of anybody's residential neighborhood is a big mistake. So I just want to add that to the equation. Thanks.
Thank you, Harvey. Any other public comment tonight? Come on up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Engen. And I'd just like to say, as a former colleague who worked alongside both Gabriel and Kevin Burleson for 8+ years, I can attest to the integrity, work ethic, and commitment to excellence that the two of them have put towards their career. And their new restaurant will be a wonderful addition to the island, and I think it'll fill a huge void. So I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, I think we're starting to get it. We've heard from all sides a couple different ways. Would the board like to ask some questions to the applicants or John Giorgio? Or I'd like to start our discussion before we close the public hearing, because once we close the public hearing, then no one else can really speak. Is that okay with the board? Okay. Any thoughts?
Lots of thoughts. I came into this not knowing quite how I would come out on this, and I'm still not so sure. And I could probably argue both sides quite well.
Mhm.
I'm very concerned about the location and the potential noise, particularly outside dining. That I think would not be terrific. I do see we need another restaurant in this town. Although I have problems of having another liquor license when early tonight we talked about having money for prevention of substance abuse, for example. We certainly have enough liquor licenses in that part of town, so I haven't quite finished my thoughts, but that's how I'm thinking right now.
Thanks for getting us started, Malcolm. It's always hard to get it going. Brooke or Dawn?
I mean, a recurring theme for me in conversations is how lacking Nantucket is in waterfront dining options. I mean, this is the first one that we've seen in many years as a proposal. And I like the concept that it's more casual. It's not reservations based. It's a combination of a fish market, which is also lacking from town. And I am sympathetic to there being residences right behind. I also recognize that town is inherently noisy, especially with both boats and the massive amount of traffic that the High Line brings all along there. So I understand that it's an addition, but it's not even remotely the scale of everything else in the area. And that being said, Nantucket is not only lacking in waterfront, but lacking in restaurant seats, which was a huge discussion that we had coming into season last year. I do want businesses on the island to be able to be successful, and these people have proven themselves a number of times. And I think this new concept is interesting. I think that we need to be very careful about timing and exterior noise. But I would hate the idea of having a restaurant go in on the water and not allowing anybody to sit outside at any time. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thanks, Dawn.
So questions I have is, can they have outdoor dining and not have liquor service at the outdoor tables so that you could dine on the wharf, but not?
We could condition that.
Yeah. So I appreciate their setting it up for fewer seats than maybe the square footage might allow. So tempering scale to some extent voluntarily. And I agree. There's a dearth of opportunities for families to grab dinner on vacation in Nantucket. And I worry that if we don't have more restaurants in this sort of range of opportunity for families, we're making ourselves less family friendly as a community over time. So I appreciate the concept coming. And I might be inclined on time, at end of the evening earlier, out of respect for the proximity to the residential neighborhood. So those are my initial thoughts.
To be open or to serve alcohol, or both, or timing? Where are you guys both there? As in, you want like closing it earlier than 10, or just not having alcohol served at a certain time, but being open till 10?
I'm open to my fellow board members' thoughts on
Yeah.
either or both of those further restrictions with respect to the proximity of that one dwelling in particular.
Malcolm?
Yeah, I have concerns about activity outside and respect for the neighbors. I think it was well pointed out back in the days of the ice cream parlor, people would just come and go. They weren't there. They weren't permanently sitting there, except maybe, as mentioned, a couple kids with their cones. So I'm not sure I'm would support activity outside at all. Of course, the other option is, yes, we need a restaurant. Do we need to serve alcohol in that restaurant? I'm working my way there.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'll get there.
This is why we listen and then we talk. And so I think some options for conditioning is what I'm hearing, is maybe either closing earlier than 10 or not having any service outside, or having service close down earlier. Maybe service outside closes down at 7 or 8. I'm just throwing things out there before I give you my opinion. And or no alcohol outside. I mean, the easy way is just to say no service outside. But then you raise a good point of like, well, it's on the water. We want people to sit next to the water. It's not the whole point, but it's a big part of it. And then there's another liquor license. You know, I have a feeling that the applicants are looking to make this work, or otherwise they would have came in with a bar, 1 p.m., full service, all alcohol license, right? They could be asking for that. So they're not. Something else to think about. We have Nantucket that goes to 8 p.m. to serve alcohol, Surfside 9 p.m. alcohol. Just think about other things that are kind of similar for beer and wine, although Surfside is more than that. But and at some point, maybe we have a policy. This could be next year, that just for enforcement and for the police, everything, we pick one time for those type of things. So like 9 p.m. across the board, or 8 p.m. I'm going on tangent now, but I'm okay with this being a restaurant. One of the things that we look at, Amy, is reputation. I do think it'd be different if it was an unknown entity and we didn't know them and they were from off island, and right, that does make a difference to me.
Can I?
Sure.
I was gonna respond. I was and tell a quick story. Is Gabriel a couple years ago with Straight Wharf, could be 5, could be 8. I don't know. I'm losing track of time, but we had an issue with Straight Wharf, something online we saw, and so we brought him in. I think NIR came in as chief of police, myself and others, and said, okay, whatever the incident was, it was someone a year before, maybe before he was there. And so we talked about it and went over some issues, because that area itself is prone to a lot of, drinking parties and stuff like that already, gazebo and all of that. So we had the discussion and issue, and I'll have to say, and said, we just need to make sure this doesn't happen again, or, we kind of bring that into compliance. And ever since then, it's been great. Not great. I mean, it's, there's times when it gets maybe noisy or loud, but dealing with him in particular has been great. Incredibly responsive. I haven't had an issue since then. And I had known him before, and just so working with them, and Kevin has been great. And like we mentioned, the manager himself has, who I met today, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, who he doesn't want to be there late night either. So that's not the intention here. So I think reputation wise, I have experience working with these folks, and it's been great. It's been respectful. And I don't have any concerns with them as far as we talk about reputation. So yes, I can speak to experience.
Thank you, Amy. Brooke?
I'd like to ask the applicant how they're going to manage people waiting, because it's not a reservation system. So you're going to have people lined up. And so.
It's a great question. We had a demo on Monday of this online waiting system that we're going to use. People can get online, like through your phone, anything. You can put your name on the wait list. We will text you 15 minutes. Actually, you'll get an estimate, which you'll be able to see in real time of when your table will be ready. You'll then get a text 15 minutes out saying your table is about to be ready. And then you'll get a text saying you have 10 minutes to get to the front. As I said, those seats out on the deck are my bread and butter. I don't want 40 people milling around outside there waiting for their table. So we've tried to come up with a system that will alleviate that. And the knock-on effect of that will be, we will get we'll lose more reservation, or we'll lose more guests that way, because when you set up a system that's not in person, there's going to be a higher bleed out rate, and that's fine. And as Kevin and I were just discussing, can I add something? I'm sorry, I'm about to jump off topic slightly. As you mentioned, Jason, we sort of tried to pre-negotiate this a little by starting with an earlier closing time, by avoiding a bar, by not looking for liquor, et cetera. At least for the first year, we'd be willing to amend our application to closing at 9 p.m. Sort of prove that we are that we're good neighbors and that we're not looking to change things. The 44 people on the straight wharf deck will be louder than the 14 people on that porch. That's just that's just the case. The roof that's going to go over that has soundproofing, 2 layers of soundproofing put into it, as does the dining room itself. I mean, this has not been without a serious amount of consideration on our part. We've not asked to put music outside. The door itself has a crazy fan on it. So you won't, unlike the old ice cream store where that door slammed every 12 seconds, I can feel it in my bones. This door won't be opening and closing. The air screen will serve that purpose instead. All that being said, it doesn't change the fact that there are homes, if not residences, right next to us. And that is the case. And that is obviously, we are in the commercial downtown zone. They're in ROH or whatever it is. I understand those two things come together there. We want to do in our zone what's appropriate in that zone, and that's all. But
so why don't we just take this piece by piece, so we can, what do we want to do with the outside deck? Or would you like to start bigger and say, would we all like to condition it with what Mr. Giorgio suggested as subject to conditions of all required permits? Are we all in agreement on that?
Yes.
If we were go, okay.
That's a given.
Okay, we'll start easy. So check that box. The outside deck seems to be, a more important issue. What do we feel about that? Dawn?
I'm in favor of having outdoor seating. I mean, we just allowed continued use of sidewalks all over town for outdoor seating. I think that it's part of the experience, and it's even more part of the experience if it's on the water. I do think that closing earlier, so that, I think 9 o'clock is a good suggestion, because then you're really like kind of cleaned up and out of there, at least like all the customers and the wait staff, if it's 9. So not 9 o'clock seating, 9 o'clock. Done.
Closing, right?
Yeah.
Because you're okay with tables outside and 9 o'clock?
At least for the outside tables. I mean, if there's that much soundproofing, I could maybe get around having the inside tables be open later. But I do worry that it's late out till 9 o'clock in the summer.
Until the end of August, but
It's weird.
Most of it, yeah.
When things are closing down. But.
No.
I still have a problem with outside, because yes, we did approve sidewalk dining, but not 18 feet from somebody's house. So that's still a problem for me.
But I mean, is that really true? Do you know how many residents there are throughout downtown in apartments above all of the businesses?
I'm talking about on North Wharf.
I know. But is it different?
Oh, I mean, I think it's different. I mean, if you're walking down the street on a summer night on Broad Street or South Water or something, you expect that so much. I don't think being north, no, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different venue as to Old North Wharf, as opposed to the main streets of town, period. You expect that jubilation and happiness and walking and the noise, but not in a residential area, purely residential area.
Malcolm, is there anything that would get you to that, any conditions that you would have the seating outside? Just to try to connect you to Don's position.
I have to think about it.
Okay.
I don't think something like no alcohol would make that much difference. That's not going to make a difference.
Okay.
Amy, can I ask one question? What time is the Wharf Club open until? And they have a club license, right?
The Wharf Club?
Yeah.
No.
No, they don't have any
No.
alcohol service there? Okay.
Well, not licensed service.
And they sit outside, right?
Yeah, that's a BYOB situation, I would imagine.
I'm just.
Correct, yes.
I was just kind of making the point that it's
Yes,
not
correct.
100% residential.
Correct.
Honorary member of the Wharf Rat Club. The only events in the Wharf Rat Club in the evening are special picnics like Labor Day or 4th of July. The Wharf Rat Club is not open at night. Those guys come in the morning and they're in bed by 8 o'clock.
In the morning.
Are we ready to close the public hearing?
If you're thinking about a closing time, I think you have to think in terms of when people can be seated, because it takes a good hour, an hour and a half for people to close up a restaurant. So if you have a closing time of 9 o'clock, people will be there at 11 o'clock. So I mean, I suggest, and this is being pledged as a family restaurant. Well, families are not going out for dinner at 9 o'clock with their children. So I suggest a last seating at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Well, last seating at 7 o'clock, the people will still be eating there at 9 o'clock.
Yep, thank you.
If you don't do that, and I want to make another point, I'd like you to look at the package that's before you that contains the very expensive lease they've signed with NIR. So this is not going to be a family priced restaurant. And I think that Mr. Jones makes a good point. This is not a place for a clam shack at these kind of rents. And so the families are going to be priced out of this restaurant.
I saw another hand up back there. Good.
Hi, Doug Massey. I have 4 children under the age of 10. We routinely sit at Millie's at 8 p.m., 8:30, 4 kids. All right. We need more restaurants in town for children. Thank you.
Amy, you have a comment?
Yeah, there's a comment on as far as closing time, and it's hard to really tell a restaurant as far as how to run their seatings. If we look at it, we're talking about a liquor license as well. It tends to go on last call, right? Even though we don't have a bar, but you're talking about last call service, because in most restaurants you have last calls up to 1 a.m. and then they have 30 minutes to leave the premise, right? So most of our liquor licenses downtown that go to 1 a.m. and they do last call, say by 12:45. It is closes at 1, but they have 30 minutes to finish a drink and leave the premise, right? So it's, I think when you're talking about a liquor license, possibly you're more talking about a last call situation, if that makes sense. Because, yeah, right.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Okay.
Yeah. Brooke?
So in this case, with the idea of having things closed at 9, it would be last call at 8:30. And are you talking just for the outdoor or for the entire?
I mean, I was actually thinking, I guess, along the lines of last call at 9 and recognizing that the last seating can't take place at 9 because that gets the majority of everyone out of the building by 10, except for probably kitchen staff.
I think just not to try to make everybody happy, but if we had a little earlier last call, I think we could maybe bring Malcolm into this maybe a little bit in some of the abutters, whether it's like really trying to clear the deck by 9 or something like that. I think we can start small out on the outside and then see how it goes this year, and then maybe we do something different in a following year.
What I'm thinking is that the outdoor seating should be done by 9 PM,
As in people leaving.
as in nobody really, it's wrapped up outdoors by 9 PM.
So then maybe you ask the applicant, is like, then what do we need? We need to say
Yeah.
it closes at 8, so everybody's out by 9. I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Not that they would want to do that, but
But if we were going to require that, how would we get to it in terms of?
Dawn?
I mean, I had 9 in my mind all along because we just did the same thing at the Surfside, formerly Easy Street Cantina. And there are some residences that are very near to there as well. I don't want to be completely inconsistent, but I want to be sensitive. I want to be sensitive towards how they can run a business. You can't kick everybody out. So I think last call is the key piece. Our noise ordinance in town is 10. So having a last call at 9 does pretty much clear things out fully by 10. And then I think of places like the Brotherhood and the Graydon House that are much larger establishments that are up against many residences. So I just want to be fair. And I want to encourage, I want Nantucket to be friendly to new ideas and businesses that people will really be excited about, that aren't looking to do something crazy. It's not a full service big bar scene. And I don't think takeout would actually be that less impactful in terms of odors and trash and those kind of things that will come up under other permitting.
Amy, can we put a condition on here? There may be no plan to do this, but could we say no, they cannot rent it out for an event or a wedding from June to September 15th? Because I'm just thinking of, if you were to rent that out to a large group, then that would be really loud in a different setting.
Right. So now that's difficult because now we do that down at Sandbar because it's a property owner as far as that's concerned. I think what you're coming down to with this is, so long as like they can't come in and have a live band, close it out, take all the tables out, have a live band and have a wedding reception of that sort. But if someone does pay to rent out the place, they just have to adhere to their COI, to their occupancy, and to the conditions of their licenses. The only conditions we put on are maybe entertainment licenses. If someone, in the past has wanted to have live music, you've limited it to once a month or something of that sort. I think we're moving towards a more consistent license basis and having maybe 3 temporary permits allowed for any special types of events. So that way you can kind of control that approval. So as far as putting that sort of condition, that's difficult because that's their business wants to rent it privately. They can do so long as they follow the permits that they have on it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Trying to think of everything. We usually do this with new licenses. We try to go through everything.
Right.
So I'm hearing that we're good with the, required all permitting subject to. I feel like on this side, everyone is getting close to 9 PM ish for the whole place. Just the outside. Is it easier just to do the whole place? Yeah. Okay. And there's entertainment licenses next, but we will say no music outside.
Correct.
But that's the next.
Correct.
Thing. Malcolm, where are you at? Hold on.
Well, I'm still concerned about. Put the microphone on. I haven't budged much from where I was before. I don't know who's going to be here a year from now and whether this will really be a family restaurant or, I just don't know. I think we're going to have to look at this again and see if whatever everybody says is fact, that it's a sweet little family restaurant and, the prices aren't astronomical like most restaurants on this town there, and see how it goes.
I'll comment. Restaurants have to charge enough to afford to run on Nantucket. And I'm not talking about price. I'm talking about style and accessibility and lack of reservations. And you can say, hey, kids, let's go grab, some fried clams. Let's run, let's go on the app and see if there's how long the wait is and be able to go as a family on vacation without having to have made a reservation 9 months in advance to get a table on Nantucket, which is getting to the point we're at. So I don't expect it to be cheap, but accessible in different ways, I think is what I mean.
Okay. One more comment. I think, are you guys ready to close the public hearing after this? Yeah.
Thanks. My name's Liam Mackey. I own the Nautilus and the Gaslight. And I just wanted to speak up in support of these guys. I think the point's been made about their character. I think the point's been made that we need more seats downtown. Even coming from me as technically their competitor, like we need more seats. Everyone's fully booked. You can't walk into a restaurant. I'd also urge you guys to reconsider the restrictions. I mean, these guys are already coming into this room with self-imposed restrictions. They're making concessions to the neighbors. They're making concessions to the atmosphere. It's hard enough to run restaurants out here or anywhere without further restrictions on liquor license, further restrictions on hours. I mean, how are you going to kick somebody out at 9 or, it's hard enough to get people out. I too have kids. I too eat out with my kids in the summer at 8:30, which really to have people out of a restaurant by 9, that's a 7:30 last reservation. And that's not how restaurants work. That's not how they're profitable. The other side of profitability, fortunately, it's beer and wine. I mean, we need it to pay for the staff houses. We need it to pay for to pay wages. We need it to pay for a lot of things, including the renovation, which I guess both sides can agree was very expensive. But you know what else comes with that renovation? Safety, oftentimes sprinklers, ADA ramps, all kinds of compliance that makes the core downtown safer. Like we need to be able to pay for that once we're open. And that comes with beer and wine. That comes with as many seats as we can get in the place. And I just urge you guys to let these guys close at 10. I mean, I think it's pretty gracious that he's even offering to close at 9, but the original thing was 10. It should stick to 10. Like that's what I got to say.
Well, we could always let it be open till 11 and take the liquor away. Like I'm just if you need the seats, then stay up until midnight, but don't have any liquor. So, I mean, we can go a lot of different ways. That's not how I want to go. You're looking at me, Don, like I'm crazy.
I don't think that
I don't either,
necessarily equates to noise. I mean, sometimes it brings things up an octave. But
okay, so are we ready to close the public hearing? We can still ask John George your questions or Amy. Okay.
A motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Okay, we can continue to chat.
I can try a motion.
Sure.
Go for it.
I would make a motion to approve this pending all other necessary permits, with last call to be at 9 p.m. for this first year, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
You're not restricting outside.
The entertainment, the music will be restricted outside. But I think that last call at 9 gets outside cleared out before 10. And that's our noise ordinance on this island. And it's downtown commercial district. So that's my opinion on it.
Right, you can still have alcohol.
Last call is 9.
Right.
So drinks
Okay.
are finished by 9:15, 9:30 at the latest.
Any thoughts, Malcolm? Do you want to sway us another way or make it friendly?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any other discussion? Brooke?
No, I'm ready.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those
No.
against? Okay, that passes 3-1. All right, we're going to move on to the entertainment license. So we'll open a public hearing to consider application for a new non-live entertainment license for Straight Wharf at the same place.
Can I ask to repeat the motion? The last one, is that possible?
Do you want me to say it?
I just
to
want
make
to
sure I
make
have it
sure.
right. Motion to approve the application pending all other permits with last call at 9 PM for the first year.
That's all. Okay. Great, thank you.
When Don made that motion, I looked at you like, is there anything else? And I didn't see it.
Yeah, no,
Are
no,
we
no,
missing
no,
anything?
no. And, just as attorney said that with such license to be held by the select board pending the applicant's receipt of all other mandatory licenses or permits.
Yeah, that was the intent of her,
Okay. Yep.
subject to all
Yeah.
pending.
Yep, that's all. That's
Yep.
all I needed.
Okay.
Okay.
Can they go to the ABCC or no?
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
So they can do it concurrently with the other.
Correct. Correct.
All right. So the public hearing is open for the non-live entertainment license.
Yep. So as we discussed in this Harbor Square location, the entertainment license being requested is non-live entertainment background music, as we do consistently with any location that serves liquor, to have a license to put those conditions on it. So currently the request is again just for streaming background music in the interior space of the restaurant.
This is a public hearing. Any comments?
Sorry, can I just ask Amy, it was interior only?
Correct. Interior space only
Thank you.
is the request.
Yeah, I think not having anything outside is obviously key. Makes sense. Okay. Any comments from the board?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
That was fast. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Any questions? or
Motion to
comments?
approve interior only, background music.
Second.
Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for all your emails and comments and all this.
Thank you.
We, the town manager's report, we moved to another time. Erica, I'll send an email to you and Libby tomorrow about HTC, like where to put the HTC. And we'll give this just a minute. Any other select board comments or committee reports? Nope. Anything for you, Matt?
Yeah,
Malcolm?
just a quick one.
Sure.
Just the first thing I'll say, you guys did a good job. That was not easy.
Second.
Yeah.
Excuse me, we still have a meeting going on. Can you bring your conversations outside? Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm kind
Erica.
of scared.
The general.
No, I just say you guys did a good job. That was hard.
We did it at the beginning of the meeting. We moved the HDC because we knew this was going to go so late. Sorry.
I thought about bringing that back up halfway through, just in case. Sorry. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first off, before Ginger leaves, Ginger, I got a picture, 22 turkey vultures roosting in front of Jared Coffin tonight.
Jared
Yeah.
Coffin?
You're right downtown. They're living downtown. She told me.
It's the Ides of March. It must be.
Is that your committee report?
Well, that was one thing. There's turkey vultures. She told me that are roosting on like Union Street and Pleasant Street, and they're up in the Widows Walks, and it's quiet downtown in the winter now, not like when I was a kid, and there's no one down there, so they are happy to live down there.
They started off on Pleasant Street, a couple of dozen. I've seen them on the roof walks on Orange Street. You can tell when there's a large group or a flock of roosting birds by looking at the sidewalk, where it looks like somebody had a paint fight. Remember those? On the sidewalk, and it washes away in the rain, but there's definitely been a big vulture roost in town.
Yeah, which is, I don't remember that in my whole life. All right, the
Well,
other one.
that's
I was
because the
gonna say-
turkey vultures weren't here until sometime in the 80s. They've been moving up with the other southern species.
Oh, there we go. I'm giving this
Ask
an
a question, get too long an answer.
There we go. I learned something.
Hey, Ginger sat through all that thinking she had
I know, I have
HCC,
to-
so let's give her some.
I had to
some
give
room
you a
to
little
talk.
bit. No, so Coastal Resiliency met on Tuesday. We spent the entire meeting really talking about funding. Brian was available, talking about different funding. How does the town gonna do it? What are the things we have to look into? We didn't solve anything, but it was a pretty important conversation as to like, how much is this gonna be and how are we going to, do we better it? How do we better it? How do we get staff in place to, write the different, write for, different requests, et cetera. So all those things what came up, which was good. In a future meeting, we're going to be talking about, zoning and TDRs and what regulations, what things should we be thinking about now that will, which I think are pretty important. And they're one of the earlier, we had like 40 items on the recommendations, and it's one of the earlier items is to get started on those things. So that was it I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Somebody's I can sign
It was so nice to not have to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Lots to sign.
Lots to
with all
sign, okay.
your approvals.
Sign, yeah.